everyone. I'd like to bring this meeting to order of the Goleta City Council of September the 16th, 2025. If you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. Thank you. If we could do roll call, Council?
Councilmember Reyes-Martin.
Here.
Councilmember Kiriakou.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Park-Hasden.
Here.
And Mayor Perotti.
I'm here. Okay. I'd like to introduce, have our Spanish interpreters please come up and introduce yourself.
Sorry. Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Hugo Santos and I'm here as interpreter. I'm going to say this message first in Spanish and then in English. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Hugo Santos, soy uno de los dos intérpretes que estamos aquí para interpretar de inglés al español. Si usted desea o alguno de ustedes desean, utilizar ese servicio, tenemos algunos dispositivos para quien lo solicite. Solo necesita llamarnos y se los pasaremos. Just to let you know that we have interpretation from English into Spanish. And if you want to hear all this event in Spanish, just raise your hand and I will hand you one of these devices for you to be able to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Report from closed session. Mr. Rosen, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. So for the items read into the record on the closed session agenda tonight, there is no reportable action.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, we will have public forum for anybody that would like to speak on anything that's not on the agenda and within our jurisdiction. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. For those of you on the Zoom webinar who wish to speak to a non-agenda item, please use the raised hand icon and I will call on you. I do have two speaker slips, starting with Umesh Mishra.
Thank you, David. Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak before you today. My name is Umesh Mishra. I'm the Dean of the Robert Mehrabian College of Engineering at UC Santa Barbara, and it's my pleasure to be here today. My other gigs have been co-founding two companies, Transform, which still is here as Renesas, and Nitrous, which was the Greece Santa Barbara Technology Center that had a good run here for about 18 years. UCSB and Goleta have long been partners in promoting and supporting technology and innovation in our community. For more than a decade, our partnership with the city through the Goleta Entrepreneurial Magnet, GEM, has provided invaluable support to entrepreneurial students and teams in the New Venture program and the Technology Management's G2 Summer Accelerator, and then after launching startups through the GEM Startup Support Grants. Goleta's continuing focus on supporting innovation, entrepreneurship, and startups in the city's strategic plan, along with its commitment to continuing the partnership with UC Santa Barbara, ensures that the cutting-edge technology developed on campus can be incubated locally, creating jobs and positively impacting our cities and regions' economy. On behalf of UC Santa Barbara, we thank the city for this commitment. Last week, UCSB announced that it has secured a long-term lease on the 105,000 square foot research and development facility on Los Carneros Road, right across from here, taking over the lease from Appeal Sciences, which continues to hold an important footprint in the building. So we'll work together with Appeal as they evolve to the future. Under the direction of the Robert Mehrabian College of Engineering, the facility, which we are calling OASIS, is an exciting opportunity to enable world-class technology and development and translation at scale. OASIS is a metaphor that represents the transition across a desert between the discovery of innovation and the delivery of innovation for society. OASIS will be the home of research and development facilities for semiconductor materials and devices to power the AI revolution, quantum materials for computing and sensing, advanced batteries for next-generation EVs and grid storage, and biomaterials. But where a facility on the UCSB campus may focus on a first-time discovery or prototype, the facilities at OASIS will enable optimization and scale-up of a technology. As such, OASIS will also serve as a resource to industry, whether for established companies or startups, to help de-risk the costs of R&D by providing access to this level of instrumentation. Being a professor, please excuse me, I'm going to run over time for 30 seconds. So UCSB Startup Incubator at the California Nanosystems Institute, CNSI, Tal Margalit, being an executive director of the institute, recently celebrated its 10-year anniversary. CNSI incubator companies are now valued at over $2 billion, have created over 500 jobs in California, and have engaged 50 UCSB and community college students as interns. OASIS will serve as a home for companies graduating from campus, giving them a place here in our community to keep growing smartly and make an even bigger impact economically.
Thank
We're
you.
still in the beginning stages, and we look forward to your support as
Thank
we go
you.
forward.
Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Mark Preston.
Hi there, I'm Mark Preston. I am here in Goleta, Santa Barbara area for 59 years this week.
Wow.
I have been working for a year and a half on the RNA issue. I've met with county finance and auditors, met with Supervisor Lee prior to his election, met with 3rd District executive staff and had some contact with Joan Hartman, Supervisor Hartman, met with District Supervisor executive staff, CAPS executive staff, met with County Executive Accountant Paul Clementi, met with Goleta RNA Subcommittee, and had 2 meetings with Assemblyman Hart. I'm into this about 100 or 200 hours, okay? What you don't know is that I spent 35 to 40 years in this town chasing spreadsheets, chasing accountants, and chasing engineers, trying to pull that together. So I'm not a smart guy, but I have the experience to deal with what I've been dealing with, okay? So after all of this study, Goleta, in my opinion, is getting, to use a word from our past, is getting hosed by the county. On this very specific issue, not every issue, but on this very specific issue, CAPS and Hartman are not your friends. It's hard to say whether it's denial or lack of attention to detail. I don't know, but we're getting pushback on that. I will send all 5 of you council members the results of my work. It's 3 pages of talking points and then about 30 pages of documentation. Almost all of it is from the county. I want you to bookmark this for your files. It is the summary documentation of work, and if you spend even 10 minutes looking at this, I think your blood should boil. Am I? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I'll have to take that other minute. My request is that one of you go some Tuesday morning to the supervisor meeting, speak in public comment. Your request would be, I am a Goleta Council Member XXX, and I request that we seriously discuss the Goleta RNA. This would be a good time to enter your little Hoover complaint in the public record. I don't think anybody there has ever read it, has ever seen it. I've talked to them. This issue will not go away. We owe it. We all owe it to the future of Goleta to put a pin in this. Last thing is unequivocal state law says, state policy says that 14% of our tax base goes to the county, 12% goes to the city. That's any city, and always to Santa Barbara County. You're going to have to explain to your constituents when they ask you, you're going to say, Goleta gets 5%, Buellton gets 15%, and Lompoc gets 16%. And so the next time you get that question, please find that report. It has enough clues in there to win a game show on TV. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes public forum, Mayor.
No speakers on Zoom?
No speakers
Okay.
on Zoom.
Okay, great. Then I'll close public forum at this point and move on to amendments or adjustments to our agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, we have no adjustments tonight. And also moving on to city manager's report. I know this is a rarity, but I have no city manager's report tonight.
Okay, all right. Then we will move consent calendar to the consent calendar.
Okay. And that will be item A1, approval of the City Council meeting minutes of August 19, 2025, and September 2, 2025. Item A2, acceptance of the July 2025 check register. Item A3, acceptance of the June 2025 investment transaction report. Item A4, fiscal year 2024-25, fourth quarter year-end financial review unaudited. Item A5, second reading by title only of a tenant protections ordinance amend Chapter 8.19 tenant protections of Title 8 Health and Safety of the Goleta Municipal Code, and that is to conduct the second reading by title only and waive further reading of an ordinance 25 next in order entitled an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Goleta, California, amending Chapter 8.19 tenant protections of Title 8 Health and Safety of the Goleta Municipal Code and determining the ordinance be exempt from CEQA. Item A6, Amendment Number 1 to Professional Services Agreement for Planning Services with Environmental Science Associates. Item A7, authorization to advertise construction bid for the replacement of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning rooftop units 11 and 13 at City Hall. Item A8, award of agreement for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning maintenance and repair services at various city-owned facilities. Item A9, award of contracts, categorical exemption, and approval of plans and specifications for the 2025 residential resurfacing project. Item A10, emergency shelter facility use agreements. And item A11, Office of Traffic Safety Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety Program grant.
Thank you. Council wish to pull any item from consent?
I wanted to pull A5 for some brief comments.
Okay. Okay, any other? I'm going to also pull, because I know we have a speaker for A11. Okay, so let's first take A5 and could you read that item so everybody knows what we're discussing, David?
Yes, that is item A5, second reading by title only of a tenant protection ordinance, amending
you.
Chapter 8.19 tenant protections of Title 8 Health and Safety of the Goleta Municipal Code.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes, after our last meeting, I wanted to see if there was council support. I know staff is going to be working on updating the website that's relevant here, but I wanted to see if there was support, if it would be feasible to do, a one-time informational Zoom or in-person, whatever's easiest for staff. Once this goes into effect, I know it's like after a roughly 30-day period, and I think the website's top priority, but I thought that would be somewhat helpful to at least, try to tackle some of the confusion and questions that the community may have.
I'd be supportive of that.
I would as well. Oh, and Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I guess I would add, I don't know if it would be one meeting. I see you're ready to comment, but I've gotten questions also from landlords as well as from tenants. And so I don't know if you think one big meeting is good or two separate meetings, but there's definitely people would benefit from more education on it.
Mayor and Council, we'd be happy to hold a general information session, and we think that's a good suggestion. We'll certainly work to set one up and engage with both landlords and tenants to provide information and answer questions.
Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that because, I felt like at the last meeting, there was a lot of misinformation, and I want to make sure the public has it right, what we're proposing. And it'll be in effect in, 30 days?
Yes, I believe it takes effect
If we,
October
vote
17th.
on it. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Reyes-Martin?
I'll just add my support for that, and I think the city has a good track record of doing these types of Zoom webinar or workshops. We did, staff did similar ones when we did the single-use plastic ordinance and the Go Green Goleta and all the various programs associated with that, and I think those were pretty popular, so I definitely support that. Thank you.
Okay, Okay.
That was my only comment. Thank you.
Okay. I think we could take A11 and then we'll vote on everything. Is that right, Mr. Rosen?
Mayor, that's fine. We would take public comment on any of the
Oh,
consent calendar item
absolutely.
first, but if council wants to discuss A11 as well, since it was pulled.
Okay. If anybody has anything they'd like to say on this particular item, A5, you may come up. No speaker slips?
I only have one for A11, but for those of you on the Zoom webinar who wish to speak to a consent item, please use raised hand icon and I will call on you. I'm seeing no hands going up.
Okay, so we'll take A11 now, and then we'll take the whole consent for comments.
Great, and then A11 is the Office of Traffic Safety, Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety Program Grant. I
Thank
do
you.
have one speaker slip from Barry Remis.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor Parodi and council members. It's been a little while since we've met each other. And what better time to speak about back to school and safe routes to school safety than September and back to school. So we just had, and this, by the way, Barry Remis representing MOVE Santa Barbara County. We want to thank you for your hopeful anticipated approval of the Office of Traffic Safety Grant Award. And just a little note, the MOVE Santa Barbara County, formerly the Santa Barbara Bicycle Coalition, and COAST, the Coalition for Sustainable Transportation, as many folks know, has been providing safe routes to school bike and pedestrian safety education for decades. And this is countywide. But in the city of Goleta, we've really enjoyed a great lasting relationship, and not only through the traditional, I guess I'll say, Measure A cooperative agreement, where the different South Coast municipalities sort of contribute in towards bike and pedestrian safety education and funding for that, and for the Safe Routes to School program. The more recent opportunities to receive state funding through the Office of Traffic Safety really helps us and also the municipalities to expand upon the existing education programs. And so namely, not only can we get interact and reach more students throughout the schools, throughout the school year. Also, we can expand that to the community as well. And so in recent years, we've engaged with the public through community bike rides. We also, with partnering with the city of Goleta, have hosted e-bike safety awareness. And that's actually a big focus of our curriculum this year, is to kind of beef up that e-bike safety curriculum in various different forms, including presentations at schools and junior high schools and in the high school level. And also we're in development currently on an e-bike safety brochure and a buyer's guide. And the idea there is that that will be distributed via Parent Square through the schools, but also to be able to make that available through e-bike retailers, so that when families purchase bikes, they can get a brochure and parents can discuss that, and hopefully it's going to connect with our young riders as well too. So again, we just want to be able to say thank you. Also, we're hoping to be able to introduce you tonight to our new Goleta Education and Encouragement Coordinator. Her name is Lainey Diakusuma, and she unfortunately wasn't able to be here today. Our prior Goleta Education and Encouragement Coordinator, Hema Jimenez, is still with us. She is relocated physically, but she's now working in a capacity for our communications coordinator. So we have a new face that's going to be interfacing and our coordinator through all the Goleta City Public Schools. So thank you again, and we wish you a good evening. Yeah.
Don't leave, because I think
Okay,
I
yes,
have
yeah.
a few questions. I'm so glad that you came this evening, and I'm such a fan of MOVE Santa Barbara and the history with Coast, and
Thank you.
I can't remember all the names now. I'm drawing a blank, but that's not important. What's important is all the great work that you've done, especially with our schools. So, Luz Reyes-Martin, Councilmember Reyes-Martin, and I sit on the Public Safety Committee, and that was something that we both really strongly want to address. And, well, maybe you should tell. No. Councilmember
I'm on the edge of my
Reyes-Martin
seat.
had this idea, and I've heard about it as well, where schools, in partnership with organizations, nonprofits like yourself, would, if you're going to ride your e-bike to school, you have to participate in some kind of a training or a program or go over the rules, and then you get something that identifies that you've taken this course, and it can also apply towards their PE time. Have you heard of anything that? I know we're gonna push it and support it and ask superintendent of schools, especially the junior high and the high school, all of them, what they think of an idea like that. Have you heard of anything like that?
We obviously MOVE Santa Barbara County is certainly looking forward to contributing and partnering with municipalities and that nature. I mean, we've been doing it anyway, going to schools. We're just now basically, trying to augment and pay a specific focus on e-bike safety in particular. Different municipalities are handling things in various different ways. We've heard of, the Huntington Beach approach, which the city of Santa Barbara looked at. They've since amended their e-bike and e-conveyance ordinance amendments, and they are stepping up on not only enforcement too, but also SBPD has been going into schools as well, and we actually have been awarded a cooperative grant through the Office of Traffic Safety with City of Santa Barbara for the first time as well, and Carpinteria. So, and we've been engaging with, let's say, for example, the city of Carpinteria, kind of in a moderative mediator sense, on their discussions for e-bike safety as well. So it's certainly something that's happening all around. And we do realize that also at the state level, there is talk of legislation on licensing and requirements for what minimum age and do, like, maybe perhaps for certain classes of e-bikes that licenses may be required for that, and also testing. So, but when we bring it down to the hyper-local level, I think that's just discussions that we'd certainly be willing to have in terms of how we can partner with not only the school, but also the city as well, schools, and see how we can achieve the goal of safety, yet also independence and fun,
Yes,
which is
absolutely.
what we hope we can get it all. So,
Can you answer one more question for me about when you're working with the students, are you working with them on e-bike safety at the schools during the week, or is it on weekends? How do they know, and are they required to come, or how does that work?
yeah, we've been a little bit, most of our opportunities to engage and reach students at the schools would be during the week when school is in session, because we have, we schedule those arrangements, and most of it is scheduled through their PE class time. Our education and encouragement coordinators for the past several years have been working on the model that we're trying to train the PE teachers to bring bike education and pedestrian safety education into their curriculum so they can incorporate it. And almost in a way, in an ideal sense, we're kind of working ourselves out of a job so that it really gets integrated. That's easier said than done, but and it's it's a challenge. But but what we're also trying to do as well is, I know, for example, one of our other coordinators is out at the Monroe Elementary School back to school night this evening, and sometimes there's also maintenance events for kids and their bikes that happened on the weekends too. So we're certainly wide open to being able to engage just about 24/7, so that we can really reach them, and we really hope that the message will get not only through to students, but also their parents as well, so it can be an engagement across the board.
Great. Well, don't leave. Mayor Pro Tem Kazin, do you have any questions?
Well, the first one is, currently, I think most of your outreach has been focused on elementary schools, if I'm correct. And so what's changed now is not only the vehicle that's different, but also the audience is different. And how much will that change what you're doing? Do you already have a program, in a sense, for e-bikes and junior high and high school kids who are going to be rolling their eyes as they are wont to do?
Sure. It's kind of a mixed answer to that. I wouldn't necessarily say that we have a full-blown program, but we have been in the past few years, again, augmenting our curriculum to not only engage at the elementary level, but also we have, for example, presentations that we put together for e-bike safety specifically that engage at the junior high or in some cases the high school level as well too. Recently, one of our, in Carpinteria, an encouragement coordinator there, education encouragement coordinator there, met with the Carpinteria High School students to talk more specifically about e-bike safety. And as we're developing this e-bike safety brochure, we're definitely trying to take into account the, I guess I'll say, the eye roll factor to really kind of meet them where they're at to our best of our ability and kind of balance it with information, but also, interest and fun at the same time, and hopefully something that doesn't just get tossed in the trash.
Yeah, no, I mean, the challenge is great and growing because I see now far more e-bikes than I do regular bikes. And I would guess that the accident rates are also correspondingly focused more on e-bikes. And so the challenge for you guys and for the community is there. I would just add, actually, if you have suggestions, as we go forward with our various programs on, infrastructure-related stuff, if there are approaches for e-bikes that work, I mean, obviously slower traffic calming stuff is effective, but any ideas that you guys come up with?
Yes.
So the 20,000 we're giving right now, that'll continue to focus on the elementary school and so forth, and this new 60+ thousand will really be an expanded, broad program for mostly a new audience and so forth. Is that?
It is, but also I guess I'd say yes. And the Office of Traffic Safety grant funds, as they have been in the past, are really holistic. That also includes bike and pedestrian safety at the elementary school level as well as the upper grade levels, but also in the community as well. So it's not just simply about the schools, there are other opportunities. And this year, again, specifically, we're really just trying, just because of that it's really out there, that we're really trying to increase, in our grant proposal collectively with the city, we have placed a focus on e-bike safety to further that.
Appropriately. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
separation on one thing, just to answer your question, when it comes to infrastructure, because also the city of Santa Barbara is factoring the proliferation of e-bikes into the design on a lot of their infrastructure projects, Cliff Drive, et cetera, to be able to make separated spaces for bicyclists and pedestrians to accommodate the fact that e-bikes are so much more prolific and fast at times.
Right,
yes.
so in other words, 3 lanes, a car lane, an e-bike lane, and a pedestrian regular
Imagine
bike lane? Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Carriaco, you have something to say?
Well, as long as we're all asking questions. So one of the best practice strategies was listed as a bicycle rodeo. What is a bicycle rodeo?
Yes, for those who may not, for the uninitiated, I'm not sure who came up with the term because there are no horses and there are no ropes, fortunately. A bicycle rodeo is generally it's kind of our opportunity to engage with usually about 4th or 5th graders at that level on the rules of the road. And so we actually I think in general, the general practice is to sort of construct a simulated city or a cityscape. So we call it Safetyville. And so we'll actually have 2 courses where one emulates intersections and stop signs and enforcing who goes first at an intersection, how do we communicate, how do we ride predictably, safely, and visibly. And then we also incorporate a linear course where we're practicing signaling and starting and stopping, good handling on bike skills. So the bike rodeo is that opportunity for the students to be able to engage in that kind of simulated real world without actually being on the road.
And would this be done like on a playground or just like
Blacktop? Yes. Oftentimes we'll use a basketball court because the lines are conducive to that.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, we do have, and I hate to put him on the spot, but we do have a sergeant here, Sergeant Rivas, that if he has any comments on what he's seeing out there on a daily basis.
I just wanted to say that this Saturday, myself and Deputy Munington, along with 3 officers from the Santa Barbara Police Department, we are going down to Huntington Beach to look at their program. We're very interested in that. It's one of the most successful programs in the state right now for e-bikes. And then they also train their officers a week-long course on how to teach this course that's taught to the young people. So we're on it. You know, we know that it's a big problem, and we want to make sure that more than writing tickets, we want people to be safe. So that's our main goal.
Well, we want them to be safe and have a good time, but, you know, it's a challenge sometimes. When
Exactly.
you see some of the things they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, the big fear for us is when we see these kids on the Surons, which are not an e-bike, they're an e-motorcycle. And they're doing 60 miles an hour on the roads with no helmet, so it's very dangerous. So we want to, you know, educate as much as we can.
I have a question. When we see somebody on a Suron in Goleta, I know Santa Barbara has confiscated them, you know, taken them away and pounded them, and it costs, you know, it costs money to get it out a lot. So are we doing something like that?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Here's the unfortunate part. When we do see kids in a Suron, sometimes they take off from us. I'm not going to chase a kid on a Suron, especially if he has a passenger that doesn't have a helmet.
Oh, yeah.
But when we do stop them, they're issued a citation, and then per the vehicle code, we can impound that Suron for 48 hours, and then it gets released again. But you know, you can imagine if we keep taking them for 2 days at a time, it can get pretty expensive. So that's not what we want. We don't want to do that. We don't want to tow anybody's motorcycle. We don't want to give them tickets. We want them to be educated, and take those off-road, which is what they're intended for, off-road.
Thank you.
I did have one question there, actually. In the presentations, how much are you guys coordinating? What you learn in Huntington Beach, is that going to be integrated in what happens with MOVE? Are we having one program?
Is MOVE working with, they're working with us right now on the O'Brien Trail, right? I just had a meeting last week with several people regarding issues on the Auburn Trail, yes. And so, yeah, once we get where we're going to get, we will definitely work with the MOVE, Santa Barbara MOVE.
Okay.
And we worked with them. We worked with them in the past. Matter of fact, I did a training with them at Goleta Valley Junior High. It went very well.
Yes, so we're certainly engaged in that respect, and also with the county, because he brought up Auburn Trail, so that's really kind of multi-jurisdictional. And just I wanted to touch on, this is why the key when you bring up the Surons, and so we're incorporating those classifications and also what is not considered an e-bike and what is considered an electric motorcycle, which is illegal, into our e-bike safety brochure and buying guide, because it's really, that just shows that the education cannot stop with the students. It's really got to get to the parental level, so that when people are buying these products, they really understand what the restrictions are and what the risks are.
And it's our understanding when Huntington Beach does this program, parents are required to attend, or a guardian.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Do we have any public speakers?
Yes, if anyone wishes to speak to this item, please use the raised hand icon and I will call on you. I'm seeing none, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to take the whole consent calendar, if anybody has any, are there any public speakers on that?
Yes, if any member of the public wishes to speak to any consent item, please use the raised hand icon and I will call on you. And I'm seeing none.
Okay, then I'm looking for a motion to approve consent calendar.
So moved?
Okay, who's going to second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Council members, do lock in your votes. Councilmember Reyes-Martin,
Aye.
Councilmember Kiriakou,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tempore Kasdan,
Aye.
and Mayor Perotti.
Aye. It's unanimous. The ayes have it. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to our public hearing.
And that's going to be item B1, Community Development Block Grant 2024-2025, Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Joanne Plummer, your Neighborhood Services Director. Tonight, we're here to talk about the Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report for 2024-2025, affectionately known as our CAPER. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Cassidy Laera, Senior, Senior Management Analyst, thank you, who is our guru when it comes to CDBG.
And I will take this opportunity to open the public hearing.
Thank you. So since 2004, the City of Goleta has been an entitlement grantee receiving an annual allocation of federal funds to support activities that benefit low to moderate income residents in Goleta. For program year 24 to 25, Goleta was awarded $292,000 in CDBG funds. These dollars are guided by our 5-year consolidated plan and must be reported each year through the CAPER. So the goal of tonight's hearing is to gather public comments on the draft plan and just provide an opportunity for the public to review. So in the 2004 to 25 plan, up to 20% of funds were used for program administration, 15% for public services, and the balance for public facilities and infrastructure, so capital projects. This year, about $190,000 was allocated for capital improvements at the Goleta Valley Community Center in Old Town, which is the neighborhood with the highest concentration of low and moderate income residents in Goleta. The planned work on site included skylight replacement and ADA improvements to sidewalks, passive travel, and the restrooms, with the construction expected to begin in spring of 2026. On the public services side, the city partnered with 3 nonprofit subrecipients: LEAP Family Resource Center, People's Self-Help Housing Supportive Housing Program, and New Beginnings Safe Parking Homeless Outreach Program. Together, they served more than 1,000 individuals, exceeding the original goal of 610. And over 99% of beneficiaries verified as low to moderate income residents. So the draft CAPER is currently available for public review starting September 4th through September 22nd. To date, we have received 1 comment expressing concern that the report did not include housing or rental assistance or the construction of affordable housing units. So I did want to use this as an opportunity to clarify the CDBG's intent. So to clarify, federal law limits on how CDBG funds may be used. The program's primary role is in non-housing community development, such as infrastructure, public facilities, neighborhood revitalization, and community development, public services, and economic development. In limited cases, CDBG can support housing indirectly through rehabilitation, code enforcement, and fair housing activities, but it generally cannot be used for direct rental assistance or for building and operating affordable housing units. Other HUD programs address those housing needs. So we do participate in the Home Investment Partnership with the County of Santa Barbara, and that is HUD's dedicated housing program that provides funds to create, rehabilitate, and purchase affordable housing for low-income households. The HUD Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program provides direct rental assistance to very low-income households and is also administered by the Housing Authority of Santa Barbara County. Our 5-year goals for CDBG complement these housing programs by focusing on non-housing community development. This includes expanding public services for low and moderate income youth, seniors, and residents with special needs, preventing and reducing homelessness, improving public facilities and infrastructure, and addressing material barriers to accessibility. In closing, staff presents the draft 2024 to 2025 CAPER for council and community consideration. At this time, we welcome any questions or comments from the council and the public before this report is finalized and submitted to HUD.
Great.
Thank you.
Council, any questions? Okay, then we'll go to public, see if there's any questions.
Yes, any member of the public on the Zoom webinar who wishes to speak to this item, please use the raised hand icon and I will call on you. I'm seeing no public comment for this item, Mayor.
Okay, back to council.
Councilmember
Smith.
Thank you. I just wanted to briefly comment on that comment letter that we received and just to acknowledge that, you know, even if CDBG isn't the way that we're tackling some of those concerns, it's, you know, the issue of, you know, seniors and people on fixed incomes, getting 10% raises every year. There's just been some media about how, rents have just skyrocketed in the last 10 years. And I really think it's a pressing and ongoing concern. So I think in particular, as we bring back our tenant protection ordinance next year, I really think that's something we need to give serious consideration to, because the number one cause of homelessness is unaffordable housing. So we're going to keep having people keep falling over the cliff if we're not addressing affordability. So in any case, I hope we can address some of those concerns sort of. I know some of the different housing programs sort of indirectly address those concerns, but as we look at tenant protections next year, I think it'll be an important thing that we consider.
Thank you. Councilmember Carriaco?
I'll just add to that Heritage Ridge is breaking ground soon, and 30% of that project will be for low and very low income residents, and a significant portion of the, I think, 102 or 104 deed restricted units are going to be set aside for seniors. And so when you think about what that means for people that are at the low or very low income level, that is folks that really are on a fixed income, that really are at risk of homelessness. And so I think the city's approval of Heritage Ridge and some of the other housing that we've supported in the past, I think makes a real difference in terms of trying to accommodate that very real need.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, then I will close the public testimony and entertain deliberation. Good job. We're all worthy. I know it's never easy to make the selections, but it looks like they did very well on their goals. That was great to hear. Okay, do I have a motion?
I'm happy to make the motion. I move that A, we review and accept the Community Development Block Grant 2024-2025 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, and B, authorize staff to submit the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, incorporating any public comments received and requested updates from council.
I'd second.
Okay, I need to also close the public hearing. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Yes, thank you. Council members, please do lock in your votes. Councilmember Reyes-Martin.
Aye.
Councilmember Kyriaco.
I'm going to abstain because my wife is a uncompensated board member for one of the recipients.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tempore Kasdan.
Aye.
And Mayor Perotti.
Yes, it passes with one abstention. Thank you. Okay.
That'll bring us to our first discussion action item. That is item C1, Goleta Valley Library Interior Design Funding Plan, Capital Campaign Authorization, and Friends of the Library Donation Acceptance.
Ms. Plummer, is this you again? You're up again?
This evening is the
Exciting.
Neighborhood Services Show. Second up this evening, we have our Goleta Valley Library. Our team has been working hard with our designer on the interior design. And the question, as we shared with council previously, was where is that funding going to come from? So instead of just raising the question, we're proposing some answers. And for that proposal, I'll go ahead and turn the microphone over to our city librarian, Elizabeth Saucedo.
Thank you, Ms. Plummer. And good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. We're so pleased to bring this item before you this evening. We feel that there is so much potential for what it could mean, not only for the project, but for the future of library services in Zone 4. So this item presents for your consideration a two-part recommendation. The first is to authorize staff to pursue the launch of a capital campaign to raise funds for upgraded interior furnishings for Goleta Valley Library. And the second is to accept and acknowledge the donation of $175,000 committed by the Friends of the Goleta Valley Library in support of upgraded furnishings. And so I'd like to start with just a brief history of the project background and how we arrived at our item we're bringing for your consideration this evening. And so as many of members of the community know, the library first opened its doors 50 years ago. And since then, it's undergone very few infrastructure upgrades and repairs. And so in October 2023, we were ecstatic to learn that we had been identified as a recipient of the California State Library Building Forward Library Improvement Program grant. And so this was statewide to help libraries such as ours really get up to code when it comes to infrastructure, fire and life safety systems, ADA compliance, really to get our facilities back up to where they should be to support the next generation of users. This grant totaled over $4 million from the California State Library, and those funds were specifically earmarked for 7 identified categories of improvements, all related to infrastructure. Those are the ADA restroom upgrades, HVAC replacement, ADA path of travel throughout the facility, life safety and security installation, LED lighting retrofits, door and window replacement, and fascia repair and exterior paint. And so each of these is much needed. The library has been well loved and well used, and so we're extraordinarily grateful for this project. However, this particular grant excluded all furnishings and fixtures from allowable costs. And so anything from carpet to furniture to bookshelves was not an allowable use within the scope of the grant. However, the need itself still remains. And so when we were looking through the facility, we identified a number of items that are due for an upgrade, whether it's computer desks that are being used for computers that are not ADA compliant due to their heights, whether it's study carrels where patrons now bring their laptops, but when the study carrels were first placed, laptops weren't invented yet in the 70s. They weren't the everyday item that we all use today for our work, most of us do. There are also items that are nearing the end of their lifespans. And so although I assure everyone there were no safety risks, when we looked at the chairs throughout the library, there were some that were very close to the end of their lifespans. When we looked at them closely, some of the elastic bands were beginning to crack that held the seats in place. Some of the fabric was disintegrating in the lining. Very clearly that it had been used and loved for many years, but nearing the end of its usable time. And then one of my favorite pieces was the carpet. So when we relocated our shelving from Fairview to Goleta Valley Library Express next door as our temporary location during construction, 3 shades of carpet were revealed to us in the facility. One which was a lovely shade of green for anyone who might be interested, what it looked like in 1972. It was quite striking. And so what this presented to us was an opportunity. The library is currently closed for construction. It's completely vacant, and service is already established on a temporary basis elsewhere. And so this presented to us really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to provide additional upgrades outside of those that were needed for infrastructure. Having identified this need, at the end of fiscal year 24-25, additional funds were reallocated toward interior design services. What this allowed us to do was to work with the to work with our architectural team to provide interior design services to really help us begin the process of imagining what a refreshed library space might look like. But what would go into that redesign was the big question. We wanted to make sure from the beginning that the redesign would be 2 things: relevant and responsive to community needs. We wanted to make sure that we were hearing from our patrons. And so we issued a survey, community visioning survey, in July of this year, which received almost 750 responses, 400 of which were received within the first 24 hours of the survey being opened, which really just demonstrates our community is eager to see what the possibilities are for a reimagined library and to share that vision with us. There were some significant trends that pointed towards 2 things. One was a modern experience, again, computers that are conducive to individual work and study with personal devices, private study areas, interactive elements for children, upgraded furnishings and seating that were accessible for all visitors of all ages, abilities, and body types. At the same time, we heard our community loud and clear that they have really grown to adore the identity of the Goleta Valley Library, that we aren't looking for something that changes the character and the legacy of the space. And so we wanted to also take this moment to reassure our community that we have seen that trend from every group we've spoken with. And we want to make sure that when you walk into 500 North Fairview when it opens, you still know you've walked into your neighborhood library. These findings were presented with the architectural team, and so we did present those findings to them for incorporation into the initial draft of the interior design, which were shared with council on August 19th. They've also been shared with staff at various workshops, with our Library Advisory Commission, and then also members of our Friends of the Library Board. And so we've been sure to push out all of that information to keep all of our various groups and stakeholders well informed. I also wanted to take this moment to highlight the generosity of the Friends of the Library, who have to date contributed over $400,000 to this project alone, including a funded and received donation amount of $250,000 towards the renovation of the restrooms, and then an additional $175,000 in committed funds that will go towards a number of interior furnishings, such as an upgraded service desk, computer tables, mobile shelving, exterior book drops, and upgraded bike racks. We're very grateful for them. Unfortunately, due to schedule conflict, our members of the board were not able to be here in person, although we'll be sure to share the recording with them promptly. And also, we wanted to communicate on behalf of the acting president that they're very much in support of the library project moving forward. And so this brings us to our present moment this evening, which is, given these upgrades, given the community interest and the needs that the space will continue to have for generations to come, how do we bring this vision to life? And so given the opportunity that we have before us and the high interest and need from the community, we're seeking authorization from council to pursue the launch of a capital campaign, which would seek to generate a total of about $700,000 for some key furnishing upgrades within the facility. In total, at the project completion, the total amount that would be going towards furnishings alone would exceed $1 million. But thanks to the generous donations and commitments of groups to date, the campaign would be launching with an almost 40% completion right at the beginning. And so our team has been meeting with a variety of different groups in the community to do some preliminary research on the responsibility, the structure, the mechanism that would go into launching the campaign and successfully generating funds to purchase these much needed furnishings to bring our libraries revisioning to life. We have established some preliminary options, such as a staff-led capital campaign, working with a fiscal sponsor, a private campaign manager, or seeking a professional campaign counsel. Before moving forward much further, we did pause and want to receive authorization and direction from council, but wanted to also assure that we have been developing some background research to make a very informed decision for what would best fit the project, the timeline, the staff capacity, and ultimately yield the highest success for the campaign. We also wanted to note that our Friends of the Library, while they have a role that is traditionally more geared towards programming and operational support, they have really been very straightforward about wanting to be our partner in this campaign, wanting to cross-promote, wanting to get the word out, wanting to share with their members in the community that this campaign would be for the benefit of library users and library patrons. And they've also agreed to apply on behalf of the library for nonprofit grant opportunities that the library itself as a city entity wouldn't be eligible for. And to date, they have already provided one application, and then there are currently discussions to provide additional as well. And so although their infrastructure doesn't inherently support a capital campaign, they are definitely our partner in this effort, and we do appreciate that very much. Before we answer questions, we just wanted to note that we have, without even launching a formal campaign, already witnessed a very high degree of generosity for the library, not only throughout our 50 years, but even in recent months as well. And so when the library first announced our closure and our relocation, we were approached by Yardi without reaching out to them. They approached us out of generosity and interest in supporting the move. And they, earlier this year, council accepted a $20,000 donation from Yardi, which went to purchasing a number of furnishings for the temporary library and also helping to fund the interior design process as well. We also wanted to make sure that the campaign structure would allow for donations from our community. So on our first day of opening at GVL Express, a very generous patron handed Ms. Plummer a $300 check and said, "Let me be the first one to support you in this." And just last week, I was there checking in with staff. I was there for about an hour, and a patron walked up and I just handed our staff $100 and said, "I've gotten my return on this library many times over. Please let me just support all the good work you do." And so we wanted to make sure that we had a mechanism in place for the everyday donation, that truly every amount from the community will help transform our main library at Fairview into the library for generations to enjoy for many years to come. So we have begun conversations with our finance team about what that might look like, and preliminary discussions with our community relations team as well, to help us amplify the message as we prepare to pursue this with council authorization pending. I'll turn it over to Ms. Plummer for additional comments.
Thank you, Ms. Saucedo. I think our city librarian has said it all. I just wanted to share that the enthusiasm that we have in our little corner of City Hall for this project and the interior design, it's infectious and it's exciting as people start to think about what the library, we know what it's gonna function well thanks to the Building Moving Forward grant, but it's going to function extremely well. But now we're looking at the fun stuff. So what makes it look good, what makes it feel good, what makes it easier to use for our patrons, of all abilities to meet ADA compliance in our furnishings as well, but also so that when we reopen those doors, we're opening to 2027, not 1972. So that's really as you look at our circulation desk, that big bulky desk, it's not ADA compliant for our staff or for our patrons. So that's a big chunk of furniture, just, a main hub of what we do in the library, let alone some of our computer desks and kind of moves down the chain. So Ms. Saucedo has done a great job explaining what our needs are and what our goal is. And we do understand that should the decision be made that we run a capital campaign through our staff, the commitment is there and just the enthusiasm and excitement. So however it gets formulated, we'll be doing a benefit analysis to determine the best approach. We'll consult with our city management team and move forward with wherever we feel will benefit the library the best. And if it falls in our laps, we're ready for that challenge and we're excited. And every team member we talk to throughout the city across departments is equally as enthused. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Reyes-Martin.
Thank you for that really exciting report. I'm sure we will all want to publicly or on the record for not the first time and won't be the last, give my thanks to the Friends of the Library for being so generous and being such a good partner, not just now, but for decades. It's just really remarkable, how they've stepped up, and they're going to help be ambassadors for this endeavor, but also just the overall project, I think, is really great. And I'm so heartened to hear, the everyday generosity that we're already seeing. So this is really exciting. And I know I've already asked, and doesn't have to be answered tonight, but I'm sure we want to, assuming this, moves forward, we want to know what we can do as council members to help support this and get the word out for our community to really come together to help see this come to fruition. And I did want to note, just as a somewhat funny story, anytime my family and I travel somewhere, we always visit a local public library. And over the summer, we visited Santa Cruz and went to the downtown city of Santa Cruz library. I happened to ask the librarian when that library was open, and I think she thought it was about 1970. They had the exact same chairs and tables, exactly the same ones. So they must all have been on the same purchase order, all the libraries around that time. And I mentioned that we were making some updates to our library. We were thinking about furnishings, and she also concurred. It's time to upgrade the furniture. And I know we had a presentation at our last meeting with some of the preliminary plans and just want to echo again how thoughtful the process and thinking has been. To have, we know it's not, we would love the library to be twice as big. But you are making the most efficient use of the space and thinking about the furnishings and the furniture, but also the flow, and to really maximize, every inch of the space so that our residents and visitors can continue to enjoy it for, the next 50 years and beyond. So thank you so much. This is really exciting.
Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Kasdan.
Thank you. I was curious about the campaign, and I guess my first question is that usually the traditional way that we would approach something like this is with grants, to pursue grants. And so is the nature of what we're seeking, is it that it has a low probability of getting grants and a high probability of getting public donations? What made you choose the course that you're choosing in this case?
Mayor Pro Tem Kasdan, it'll be a little bit of both. For example, the Friends of the Library graciously submitted a grant application for $100,000 to go towards the interior furnishings on our behalf, and worked closely with Ms. Salcedo to make sure all the information was accurate. They have expressed the desire, as was stated, to continue to search for grants like that. And if we come across grants, which we have somebody that searches for grants on a regular basis in our office, we'll also work with the Friends of the Library and our library team to apply for further grants. Those are typically through nonprofit organizations, so the Friends will serve as our nonprofit lead. In addition, our president of the Friends shared last evening that he had met with another foundation who shows some promise and will be connecting us with that foundation that could be funding. So again, we're not walking this road alone. We are linked arm in arm with our friends of the Goleta Valley Library, and we'll be looking at grant applications. We'll look at corporate sponsorships. We'll look again at the individual donations. The users that come in the library, they may not be able to write a $10,000 check, but they will be able to give maybe $1 or $5, and we'll have that gigantic thermometer out in front of the library right when you walk in the library as well. We might put one in front of City Hall that will show the progress, so that if a child's handing in $1 saying, I want this to go towards the children's library, they know that as that inches up, they were part of that. And we felt that that was a very important component to maintain while we're looking at the giving, is because every dollar truly does count. While it makes the campaign go faster when the checks are $10,000 or more, every dollar does count. And what counts more is the heart that goes in those smaller amounts at times. And we want to make sure to embrace that heart and that feeling, and make sure that everybody knows that regardless of the amount they contribute, that they're contributing to the success.
Okay. So you're not going to be shaking the kids, cheap bastard, you can pay up a little more.
Just upside down once in a while.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Kasdan, I would just add the Building Forward grant program, I believe, had 2 or 3 rounds, and it's not clear there's going to be future rounds. Maybe money becomes available in the future, but it just shows that those kind of opportunities for state funds for libraries don't come around very often. Again, we went all in, we got lucky, we got it. But back to your point about, like, is there other grants out there? I don't think there are. It was a really one in a lifetime opportunity to get that state money, and they don't fund certain things. And so we went all in, got as much as we could, and then there really isn't that type of money, government grants for libraries. So hopefully more money comes back through the state program, but it's not. We got in for round 2, and it's not clear it's coming back right now.
Okay. And the total amount that you're looking, it's rough. The report mentioned it, but I don't know if you mentioned it in the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Kasdan. Yes, so the report does include 2 tables. One of them is the total amount of upgrades at the conclusion of the project would be $1,151,000. And so looking at the amount secured to date, we would be proceeding with a capital campaign to raise $710,000. And so just over 38% of that, over 1 million, has already been committed or funded.
So the campaign is 750.
That's correct.
And of which some may be grants or may not be grants, depending upon what's out there and how successful we are, which we don't know. Is there, if it is mostly a campaign, did you get a sense from your preliminary work what the timetable would be for a campaign?
Yes, thank you so much. Our plan as proposed would have the capital campaign begin this fall and run a course of approximately 12 to 14 months to conclude in December of 2026. The purpose for that is essentially moving into sort of satisfying two components at the same time. One is to align with the construction project. So we've been working with the architectural and engineering team, Jeffrey Miller, Architecture and Design, and actually have a meeting on the books for tomorrow to connect. As something that, as not a member of the construction world, I have discovered, is that the two are inextricably linked. That in order to place furniture where you intend to use computers, you need to have outlets, which means which may sound like common sense, but it was a lesson that I don't mind sharing. Many times I've learned that you need outlets if you're going to have computers, and so that involves electrical work. And so just making sure that if we have any input on that interior design, that it aligns with the construction schedule to make sure that we don't need to backtrack, or to make sure that all of the visioning can actually be brought to life. And so part of that timeline runs parallel with the construction project to make sure that carpeting goes in when carpeting needs to go in, and that funds have been raised for carpeting, sort of working backwards from that. And then also in terms of the timeline, catching two end-of-year giving cycles was something that we wanted to be mindful of, that a campaign beginning in October may miss certain opportunities for end-of-year giving if those have already been finalized for calendar year 2025. And so being able to reconnect and potentially aim for calendar year 2026 end-of-year giving plans from different individuals or organizations was something we were mindful of as well, to space it out so that potential donors have the opportunity to include us in their plans as they map out their philanthropic activities.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kiriakou.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I want to again thank our staff for all the wonderful work they've done and all the partnering they've done. I also want to go back to something that was touched on a little bit by Mayor Pro Tem Kasdan and perhaps brought into sharp relief by our city manager. It really is a new world when it comes to library funding. Just to kind of put it in perspective, because sometimes people don't necessarily understand the connection between what happens in Washington and then what happens in, like, Goleta. So I'll just give one example. The Institute of Museum and Library Services is a really critical federal partner that funds our libraries, that funds museums. The History Education Center at Stowe House was built and restored, and the galleries were, and the exhibits were created based off of a grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. I happened to have administered that grant when I ran the Stowe House many years ago. That money's not really available anymore because the IMLS has been mostly defunded. It's undergone defunding, funding freezes, funding reductions. How does that affect us? Well, one example to talk about grants, there's a $15 million grant that goes to the California Library every year, the LSTA, the Library Services and Technology Act federal grant from IMLS. It's gone. There is no 2025 grant, which means there's not nearly $16 million that could go to libraries like ours and others throughout California. So when we talk about these things in the community and in the news, and it seems kind of abstract, this is what it means at home. And so what does it mean for us is it means that we have to do more ourselves. And it sometimes means that we have to take risks. The grant that we went for, that we were successful in getting, we took a lot of criticism for chasing money and going after a grant when really we should have been focusing on our priorities, and maybe we shouldn't have gone after it because maybe we weren't ready. Think about what would be different in Goleta right now if we were starting from scratch. with all of the needs for our library. So I'm so glad that we made the decisions that we did, that our staff worked really hard, really fast, not a lot of notice, to get that $4 million plus grant. And so that allows us now to run a capital campaign that isn't a massive, nearly $6-7 million effort. Instead, it's $1 million effort. That's a really, really big deal. And so it really allows our community to come together. It allows the city to try and rally people. It allows our philanthropic community to rally together and to have an achievable goal that's truly reachable, that will really mean something special for all the people of our area. And our staff is having to do this at the same time that they're running libraries for Isla Vista, that they're running library services for Buellton, that they're running library services for Solvang, that they're making sure that people in San Ynez have access to a library, that they make sure that people in Los Olivos have access to basic library services. So you're doing so much, not only for Goleta, but for our entire community, and you are still finding a way to make this happen for our residents here in home. And so I'm just so proud of our staff. I'm so proud that we're able to do this tonight, and I hope that we'll support it, but this is really exciting.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you. One question I have sort of comes from a little bit of some discussions we've had in Finance Committee about maintenance. So in terms of, to the extent that I'm going to presume that our community and businesses and philanthropy hits this target and invests in this library, what is our plan moving forward to maintain these different things, maintain or replace these different items moving forward? I know, in the history of the library, it's relatively newly under City of Goleta control. We can't change what happened in the past. But moving forward, in an ideal world, what would be that plan moving forward?
Councilmember Smith, you nailed it right there on the head. We can't really change what happened before we took over the daily management, even though the city had incorporated in 2002 and we took care of the building. We were still growing, and it wasn't our staff in that building. It was another jurisdiction staff. What we quickly learned in 2019 when we took over the management of the library is our staff was communicating to the department heads and taking information up that this isn't working out, or this continues to drip. Oh, it's been dripping for the last 15 years, or something of that nature. The other thing that changed here in the city of Goleta is the development of the General Services Department. And so now having a department that is focused on the regular operation and maintenance of those facilities and putting facilities on regular maintenance and routine inspections, our anticipation is that once this beautiful bow is all wrapped up and untied and we get to enjoy the library, that we'll be on a regular routine maintenance program, which we have not been on previously because there was so much to catch up on once General Services was formed. We just started getting more facilities and we were doing more things. So we are expect from the building operations and maintenance to be on a maintenance schedule when it comes to the equipment and the understanding of the regular operations for all of the things that we're looking at putting into the facility. As Councilmember Reyes-Martin mentioned, the chairs from 1972, they lasted almost 50 years because that's when things were made very well. So again, now that we have all of the purchasing information on all of the structures, being able to put everything into a replacement program and trying to build something so we don't find ourselves in the same situation in 50 years or 30 years, whatever it might be. And then once our capital campaign is significantly successful and we're raising money beyond what we need, we've already established if there is an abundance of funds, an equipment replacement fund to be built into the future so that we can focus on our next wave of need, which would be technology improvements in the next 3 to 5 years, and then kind of work on building an equipment replacement fund so we're not having to do these asks in the future.
Great, thank you. That was my only question.
I was just gonna add that general services included in your most recent fourth quarter financial report and the introduction of a financial reserve for facilities to start funding that going forward. You were a little bit behind the eight ball on that one, but the idea is to start doing exactly what Ms. Plummer said. The other part of it is we learned this from the train depot and other projects, right? Is the idea of investing in kind of hardened furniture, fixtures, things that are not only sustainable in terms of reducing costs for lighting, for example, but also easy to clean, easy to repair, all those things that go into it when you have something for a long time and it gets used in a different way than it does in your home, for example. So that's another element of the design help that we're getting from the architects, and then also in the sourcing. Ms. Plummer is very familiar with, wanting to get things that last long, that look good, and that are easier to fix and replace. So that all goes into all of this in the background as well.
Great, thank you for sharing.
I'm just going to make a few comments, and then we'll go to public comment. I can remember a time when people were saying, oh, libraries are a thing of the past. Nobody does books anymore. And they couldn't be more wrong. But what we've also learned is that libraries are so much more than just books. They're gathering places. They're places for moms and their babies to take classes. There's things for seniors to do. There's things for students to come and do their homework after school. My husband went to the Goleta Library after school. He rode his bike over there and went to the library. So the list goes on and on and on. And so it's a safe place. And I learned my lesson when we were struggling financially, keeping the library open the hours that we had. And we were having a discussion on a council meeting, and this library this council chamber was full of people saying, oh, no, we have to have that extra day, the extra hours. And children came, and of course, when children come up to the podium and ask for something, we cannot say no. That's a small hint. And they brought signs and banners. In fact, I still have a sign on my door about reading. That's where it came from. This one little boy asked me if I would like to keep it. I'm like, yes. So that's where it is. So bravo to all the things that you're doing. Libraries are so important to our community, and I have no doubt that you will be able to get the money that you need, the funding. I think it will happen, absolutely. So thank you for your hard work on this. And I'd love to go to the public, see if there's any speakers.
Yes, I have no speaker slips. Any member of the public on the Zoom webinar app wishes to speak to this item, please use the raised hand icon and I will call on you. I'm seeing none, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any more deliberation, or anybody who would like to make a motion on this one?
Happy to make a motion.
Okay.
Were you about to?
No, go ahead. Mayor Pro Tem?
Sure. Anyone else wants to?
We're all gonna
I'll
fight.
get. Okay. That we authorize staff to pursue the launch of a capital campaign to raise funds for upgraded interior furnishings for the Goleta Valley Library, and accept and acknowledge and appreciate the donation of $175,000 committed by the Friends of the Goleta Valley Library in support of upgraded furnishings, and approve a corresponding budget appropriation and donation revenue increase of $175,000 for the Goleta Valley Library Americans with Disability Act Safety and Building Improvement Project, as described in the fiscal impact section of the report.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Yes, council members, please do lock in your votes. Councilmember Reyes-Martin.
Aye.
Councilmember Kiriakou.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tempore Kasdan.
Aye.
Mayor Parodi.
Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let's take a 5-minute break. bring this meeting back to order. Thank you.
That is going to be item C2, resolution to provide no parking zones on Overpass Road at the Santa Barbara Humane Campus, 5399 Overpass Road.
And Madam Mayor, I'd like to do a brief introduction before I turn it over to the Public Works staff. They will go into the history a bit more, but I do want to just go back a little bit because I was reading the background section, and of course it's all in there, but this actually started back in April, which is almost 6 months ago. So in the staff report, and again, they'll go into the details. I don't want to steal their thunder, but there were comments made that we received 2 comments, which isn't a lot, for this item this evening. And in fact, if you read kind of through the background section, it goes into the history a little bit more. And in fact, there was quite a few comments going back to April. That is why here we are 6 months later. And so I did want to acknowledge that. I think Lee Heller is probably on tonight. Maybe she's not. I hope she is. But you might remember the item was not on your agenda yet in April. Just the signs had been put out. And so that's what we do. We want people to know what's going on. And at that time, the signs went out, that we'd be red curbing potentially and 13 spaces would be lost. So she came and spoke during public comment. And that was the first that, it was brought to our attention that this might be a problem. So I do think that was worth acknowledging. After that, we received lots of communication. I personally received 8 to 10. People wrote me emails. I called them back. So there was, even though it's only 2 now, which is good, there was a lot in those early days, and that's why it took 6 months, and here we are. So I wanted to acknowledge that, and I would even give, I'll give Lee credit right now. That's what forced us to put our thinking caps on. At that point, we were proposing that 13 spaces would be eliminated. Here we are today. You're going to get the report. It's only 4 spaces now, and it was because of that initial public comment from Ms. Heller that we went back to the drawing board. Our engineers looked at it. How can we get creative here? How can we do better on this and maybe minimize the level of parking? So again, didn't want to steal staff's thunder, but I did want to acknowledge that even though it's only 2 comments now that the council received, it was quite a bit more back in April, and that's what I think led us to a better outcome. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nina and Teresa.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nesbitt. Good evening, Council, Madam Mayor. My name is Nina Buelna, and I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Goleta, and I'll be introducing this item. And Teresa Lopes will be doing the lion's share of the presentation. She is our acting principal engineer for the Transportation and Development Engineering section. So the item that we're discussing tonight is no parking zones on Overpass Road at the Santa Barbara Humane Campus and removal of no parking zone on Overpass Road at Semita Garden Lane. So I'll get into the purpose of the item. On October 23rd, 2023, the Planning Commission approved the Santa Barbara Humane Campus renovation project. As a part of that approval, the Santa Barbara County Fire Department required improved fire access in accordance with Development Standard 1 Fire Apparatus Access, which sets minimum requirements for driveway and emergency vehicle access. County Fire Department has confirmed that the approved driveway meets its access requirements and operational needs. The design addresses the requirements of fire department's development standards and the fire code by ensuring apparatus can enter and exit without delay, supporting their targeted emergency response timeframes. County Fire has provided written confirmation to this effect, and a representative is present tonight for questions. To support the new fire access and ensure adequate site distance at the new driveway, staff recommends adjustments to the on-street parking restrictions on Overpass Road. These changes are intended to provide proper visibility for both emergency responders and vehicles exiting the driveway. That brings us to the proposed item tonight. Establish no parking zones on Overpass Road at the Santa Barbara Humane Campus. Remove a portion of existing no parking zone on Overpass Road at Semita Garden Lane.
So in setting no parking zones or the addition of red, Can you hear me better? Okay. So in setting no parking zones and the addition of red curb, staff follows engineering standards, including AASHTO's policy on geometric design of highways and streets, California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and the Traffic Engineering Handbook. Using proven engineering standards helps ensure our decisions are consistent, defensible, and provides design immunity. Plans are reviewed and approved by licensed engineers, which protects the city and the community by showing that parking changes are consistent and based on engineering judgment. To address the no parking zones necessary for the Santa Barbara Humane Campus driveways, staff analyzed site distance requirements at the 2 existing driveways as well as the new driveway, which will be built as part of the development project. And before we go further, I'd just like to insert a brief discussion on site distance and why it's important. So site distance for intersections such as driveways intersecting a street, in design we need to consider stopping site distance. Stopping site distance is the total distance a driver needs to come to a complete stop before hitting a stationary object. Site distance is a critical safety factor in road design to ensure that the visible length of road ahead is sufficient for a vehicle to stop safely at its given speed. Some factors which affect stopping site distance are vehicle speed, road geometrics, which also play in the design speed or the speed that a vehicle has the ability to travel, and object height, the height of a driver's eyes and the height of the object on the road. So taking all these factors into consideration, we developed the necessary clear sight lines for the driveways at the Humane Campus on Overpass Road. And those are shown in this exhibit by those hatched triangle areas at the driveways. So the red curb, which is required at the driveways to prevent parked vehicles from encroaching in those areas and obstructing these sight lines, and blocking a driver's ability to clearly see the road when they're trying to exit the driveway. And just to point out some of the features on this exhibit, there are 2 existing driveways, and that's the driveway at the very top of the screen and the driveway at the bottom. So the one at the top I call the northern driveway. That's an existing driveway which will remain. And in the existing condition, there is 10 feet of red curb north of that driveway and an existing 10 feet of red curb to the south. With these changes, we are proposing to increase that section of red curb south of that driveway to a total length of 30 feet, which would result in eliminating 1 parking spot at that location. The next shows the new driveway, which is proposed to be constructed with the development. And at that driveway, because of the location and the curves that precede it, it requires 50 feet of red curb to the north and 60 feet of red curb to the south. And then on the southernmost driveway, there is existing red curb, 10 feet of red curb to the north and 10 feet of red curb to the south, and that's remaining the same. We're not proposing any changes. And so this is a picture which shows that existing northernmost driveway, and you can see the existing red curb, 10 feet on each side. As I mentioned, we're going to extend that red curb that's shown on the left side of this picture from the 10 feet that's there to a total of 30 feet. And 1 space would be eliminated with that change. And then in this picture, we are looking at the approximate location of the new driveway where that trailer is parked. Again, we're talking about installing 50 feet of red curb to the right, on the right side of that picture, and 60 feet of red curb on the left side of that picture, and that that new red curb plus the width of the driveway would result in the removal of approximately 6 parking spaces at that location. And in this picture, it's to give you an idea. If you were, it's taken from the approximate location of the new driveway. And if you were a driver in a vehicle and you're trying to exit that driveway, you can see that without the red curb and vehicles allowed to park adjacent, right there, adjacent to the driveway, when you look to your left, your sight is pretty obstructed. You can't see much of the street or the approaching traffic. So now if you imagine that we have the red curb and those 2 closest vehicles are not parked there, you'd have a much clearer line of sight. So to help make up for the loss of on-street parking associated with the placement of the new red curb, staff identified an opportunity to remove some existing red curb on Overpass Road. And this location is identified along the east side of Overpass Road, north of Semita Gardens Lane, and directly across from the Tierra Contracting driveway at 5484 Overpass Road. So there is an existing stretch of 105 feet of red curb at this location, and staff is proposing to remove the northern 55 feet of this red curb and maintain 50 feet of the existing red curb located across from the Tierra Contracting driveway. And by removing 55 feet of this existing red curb, we would be able to provide an additional 3 on-street parking spaces. And then this slide just shows the picture of the red curb and where it's located. So with all of the proposed changes, new red curb at the Humane Campus driveways would eliminate 7 on-street parking spaces. Removal of a section of this existing red curb would add approximately 3 on-street parking spaces, and these changes would result in a net loss of only 4 on-street parking spaces. So staff's recommendation is for council to adopt resolution number 25 next in line, entitled A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Goleta, California, authorizing no parking zones on Overpass Road at Santa Barbara Humane Campus, 5399 Overpass Road, and removal of no parking zone on Overpass Road at Semita Gardens Lane. And this ends our presentation, and we would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councilmember Carriaco.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I just want to kind of go back to when the project that's kind of necessitating all that we're talking about today went to the Planning Commission. I just want to confirm the plans for the driveway, what we're considering accommodating now and creating the red curb. Was that part of the Planning Commission action, the actual plans and drawings that we are experiencing today?
Mayor and Councilmember Carriaco, yes, they were. So the internal configuration of the circulation on the site, as well as the driveway and curb cuts, were considered. The project itself was really carefully and thoroughly reviewed over a long period of time. It received Public Works review as well as County Fire review, and that resulted in that configuration.
Was there anything in the staff presentation, to best of your recollection, I know this was a while ago, but to the best of your recollection, was there anything in the staff presentation, anything in the staff report, anything that was part of the Planning Commission deliberations that talked about the parking impact that the project would have by necessitating a curb cut to create a new driveway and what that would do to parking. Was that part of the discussion?
So, Councilmember Kiriako, I don't remember specifically discussion of the traffic impacts, but the red curb was shown on the plans that were approved by the Planning Commission.
Okay, so you would have had to do the math to know what the net parking loss would be, but clearly there was discussion about there would be red curbing as a part, that would be necessitated through the approval.
It was certainly shown on the plans, and there was, of course, discussion of the parking on site. So there was actually a parking reduction on site from the 77 required spaces to the 65 that are provided as part of that project. So that was certainly central to the project itself.
Okay, all right, thank you. I think that's it for planning. My next question is about really about public noticing. So first of all, I want to appreciate the work that staff did here to really be responsive to some of the comments that we heard from the community. Some of us got calls, some of us got emails. I think there was a change.org petition at one time. So I really appreciate staff kind of sharpening their pencils and going back and trying to find a way to reduce the impact that would have the loss of parking from red curbing would have on the surrounding neighborhood. I used to live across the street at Semita Gardens, and so I know that there are times, particularly later in the day and in the evening, where there's a need for some overflow parking. And I also know that sometimes the volunteer organizations that are across the street really have a lot of volunteers that need parking and visitors. So I appreciate you doing that work. I'm just wondering, given that there's a 200-unit apartment complex pretty much across the street from what was happening, what was the public noticing that was done? How was the mailing handled for the public noticing?
Councilman Kiriako, we did a 500-foot radius from where we were doing the removal of removal of parking. We also did notices, so there were barricades placed 2 weeks before the council meeting, indicating when the council meeting was, and it showed the plan of where red curb was. So that was the notification.
Okay, thank you. And I did see a copy of the notice in the staff report, so thank you for including that. I guess my last question for right now, I don't know, do we have someone from fire here? I know that was mentioned earlier. If not, I'll just ask the question generally, because I think staff is prepared for it. So I just want to, oh, we do.
Yeah, we have Fire Marshal Fred Tan is online. Since
Okay,
he's
great,
traveling.
great. Okay, so I'll just address the question to him. So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding the public safety implications with the decision to handle the no parking zones the way they are. Could the Humane Society driveway just basically be eliminated, which would then preserve the 60 feet to the south and the 50 feet to the north of the driveway that are currently proposed to be painted with red curb? What's the safety imperative behind having this new driveway?
Councilman, my apologies for not being there. It's Fire Marshal Fred Tan. My staff reviewed the project and the access. That's typically one of the most important parts of any project. Prior to reviews, access, water, sprinklers. We weren't really part of determining whether a driveway was required there because that does add parking for the facility. But when there is a driveway, do measure lengths, we try to assess whether fire engines can safely turn around, exit, have a method if we need to get out of a situation that we can do it quickly, or if we have to respond to another incident, that we could also do it quickly. In this case, the driveway that was presented was over 150 feet. I believe it's somewhere in the 180-foot range that required a turnaround of a certain dimension. I don't think that is a possibility. But without that being a possibility, then we needed a driveway that could go full all the way through.
Okay,
so
this is required for fire apparatus access based on the design of the project that was approved by the Planning Commission.
Exactly.
Okay, and the only way to potentially change the impact on the neighborhood from a parking perspective would be for the developer to go back to the drawing board and try and find another way to meet its parking requirement consistent with fire code?
Yes, I think there's an element where there's a required amount of parking, and we don't get involved in that.
Right.
But there's a required amount of parking for the on-site.
Okay.
There are also elements for fire access where we park an engine for fire attack. Has to be within a certain distance of the structures that are on the property. And the fire attack makes sense for us. So that may have been an element of, I may not be as prepared to answer that question as far as our hose pull, how we deploy hose, how we get access to those structures. But as far as what was presented to us, that driveway, it does present a safer, not having to stage fire apparatus in the event of a fire at the new structures. Being able to drive in, be able to park in a driveway presents a safer stage for us to fight fire. Allows for the residents to evacuate if needed, for traffic to move on overpass, and the apartment complex nearby. But yeah, I think it really is just the length of that driveway that necessitates having a way for our engines to pull in and out effectively without having to back up. There are activities when you drive that are more hazardous, but one of the activities that we find that is pretty routine is backing up is pretty hazardous, especially with a big, heavy fire engine.
Okay. I think you've answered my questions for now. Thank you.
Councilman Reyes-Martin?
Thank you. Some of my questions have been asked, but maybe just to clarify, and this is a question probably for planning. So I understand that when the Planning Commission looked at the plans did indicate both where the driveway was going and that there would be a need for a red curb. I think the piece maybe that I have a question on is, I presume that there was noticing about that project when it came to Planning Commission, but maybe not explicitly noticing about the red curb and the removal of parking, because I think that subsequent step is what, then people realize, maybe more of the public realized that there was going to be the loss in parking. So this is maybe not necessarily a question you can answer now, but maybe how do we in the future make sure that any noticing about either parking impacts or maybe other impacts off of the site are more obviously noticed at that initial stage, because then by the time we're here, it's much more difficult to try to fix this when the approval of the project itself has already happened.
Right, and Mayor and Councilmember Reyes-Martin, so this is of course a large and complex project, and the entire project was noticed, including a full project description. So people living nearby and or other interested members of the public would have been on notice generally that something big was happening on this site, and probably if they lived nearby, they would have wanted to pay attention to that. I did want to just mention that there's also a memo from the fire department as part of the file, a condition memo that's consistent with everything that we just heard from the fire marshal, and specifically it states that that I'm just looking, scrolling to it, that all access ways shall be installed, made serviceable, and maintained for the life of the project, and access shall be as shown on the plans dated October 13th, 2022, et cetera, and approved on January 5th, 2023. So there was full fire department review of this. Mm-hmm. They checked all of the distances that are required, and they subjected the project to these conditions. So this is very much part of the normal process, and the result here was, again, a very careful and thorough review of the access requirements for the project.
Okay, thank you. I have other comments, but I'll save those for when we get to council comments. Thank you.
Any other questions? I think I have one. I think it's for, I don't know, I guess staff. Didn't this project, maybe not the whole project, but there was a part of the project that went to the Historical Preservation Committee? Am I thinking, didn't it go to them as well? Because they were moving, yeah.
Mayor, yes, correct. So the Beck House is on the project site, and as part of this project, the Beck House is being moved toward the back of the
Right.
parcel. So that was reviewed, and in fact, it was just at Historic Preservation again to review the signage associated with that.
Okay, so it
there is
didn't
a
have
historic
anything to do with the
resources
red
component.
curbs at that
That's
time?
correct. It's unrelated to the red
Or the
curbs.
driveway?
Or the driveway.
Okay.
But, I mean, it relates to the site plan as a whole.
Yeah.
And that was an important component of the project and just one aspect of what was, again, a very complex
Okay.
project.
All right, I got it. Thank you. I thought so. Okay, let's go to the public and see if there's anybody in the public that would like to speak.
I do have about 6 speakers at this time. Those of you on the web Zubinar, please raise your hand and I will call on you. I do have Steve Ford. Did you want to speak? Okay, great. Great. So we will go to our Zoom speakers. We'll start with Lee Hellner. Please follow the prompts on your screen and you will have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, Mr. Nesbitt, I'm here. I've been going to the shelter on Overpass Road for 27 years. Parking challenges have been more than, quote, perceived, as your staff report addressed it. So much so that Councilmember Kiriakou and I were actually talking 3 years ago about trying to addressing it, but the city didn't have the staffing resources to enforce any changes that we were exploring. As for public concern about this project and its impact, as Mr. Nesbitt pointed out, there was a lot of input last spring, and you only received so little afterwards because he specifically requested that we not inundate you with emails that you would then have to answer individually. That's why there was a change.org petition that received nearly 400 signatures, which should indicate the seriousness of the impacts on Overpass Road of reducing parking there. It's also really disappointing that the Planning Commission failed to truly consider parking impacts when looking at a project like this, because its whole purpose should be to consider the impacts, not just a change in color of the curb. So their approach did not address what it would mean to lose 13 spaces on a street that serves public needs, including a government agency that serves the entirety of southern Santa Barbara County. Had this issue been addressed at the time, there might have been an opportunity to redesign to avoid this problem while meeting the needs of the Santa Barbara Humane Project. Having said all of that, I am grateful to staff for taking the issue seriously when it was brought to their attention this spring, and for looking closely at ways to mitigate impacts after the fact. Animal Services is doing what it can to squeeze more parking spaces into its very limited property. It's still going to have an impact on community members trying to access these essential services, and they will do their best, but it is a hardship. I am hopeful that the city will continue to be proactive about policing long-term parking on the street, and should a loss of spaces have a significant impact, return to this issue and look for timed parking restrictions so that we can ensure that the public has the access it needs to these essential services. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker will be Angela Yates. Please follow the prompts on your screen and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Perotti and council members. My name is Angela Yates, and I previously served as the Director of Santa Barbara County Animal Services, as well as the Executive Director of ASAP Cats. Between these 2 roles, I have spent over 20 years working at the shelters on Overpass Road, so I'm intimately aware of the parking challenges and contributing issues. I support the staff recommendation to pass the resolution to authorize no parking zones on Overpass Road at the Santa Barbara Humane Campus and the removal of the no parking zone on Overpass Road at Sumida Gardens Lane. I believe this to be an excellent compromise, balancing the critical need for parking with public safety, which is an important consideration as Overpass Road is heavily utilized by both vehicles and pedestrians. Over my 2 decades of personally parking on Overpass Road and addressing the parking needs of staff, volunteers, and the public, the key to success is parking enforcement. Over the past couple of months, since the city has stepped up enforcement, there has been a significant improvement, and I applaud these efforts. I encourage the city to remain committed to ongoing parking enforcement, as it truly makes a difference. Sadly, the opposition to the resolution has been stirred up by a small but very vocal minority who are motivated by their own personal agendas and grievances against Santa Barbara Humane and its leadership. These individuals are seeking to undermine the building of Humane's new facility, and they would deprive our community of a state-of-the-art shelter, while the county's own shelters are not only humane by today's standards, but also in declining condition. Please do not let their actions negatively impact what will be a tremendous benefit for the people and animals in our community. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration of this resolution and for the opportunity to provide public comment.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker will be Sarah Aguilar. Please follow the prompts on your screen and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I want to begin by sincerely thanking the council and the Public Works Department for taking a thoughtful pause on the proposed changes to parking along Overpass Road. Your willingness to fully evaluate the impacts of this proposal on the wide variety of people and agencies that rely on this corridor is deeply appreciated. As the city's contracted animal services provider, we recognize how important accessibility is, not just for our staff and volunteers, but for the many Goleta residents who depend on us for services like lost and found support, adoptions, and community-based resources. Reducing parking has the potential to limit access for those who are most vulnerable or who have limited mobility. We're grateful for our ongoing partnership with the City of Goleta and for the open, constructive lines of communication that we share. Thank you again for your consideration of this project and for your commitment to ensuring services remain accessible to all members of the community.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker will be Philip Seymour. Please follow the prompts on your screen and you'll have 3 minutes.
Yeah, hello. My name is Philip Seymour. I have been a volunteer at the Santa Barbara County Animal Shelter for 33 years, working with rabbits and guinea pigs. I understand that what we have before us is something of a compromise, and for that reason, we have not attempted to mobilize people. No one has any interest in preventing the Humane Society from going forward with their plans, but we would like to take advantage of this lesson we've learned here. What's really disappointing here is kind of a lack of acknowledgement of the errors that led to this. Contrary to what your staff has been implying, there was no discussion at any time at any level of the planning process for the Humane Society project about the loss of parking places. The closest that came was there was a traffic report that acknowledged there would be some red striping, but no proposed mitigation. There was in the final development plan, which did not come before the Planning Commission, it was approved by the Design Review Committee, I believe. It did show the red striping, but again, no mention, no discussion, no acknowledgement that there would be a loss of public parking. Now, if you're a detective and went through the plans with a fine scope, you probably would have been ascertain that and bring up the issue, which is what we expect our professional planning people to do. They did not do it in this case. Hopefully, next time an issue like this comes up, you would require mitigation for the loss of public parking places. In this case, there will be mitigation, but Santa Barbara Humane is not paying for it. You are. They're not even buying the paint to paint the red curbs. Here again, no one opposes what Santa Barbara Humane is trying to do. We got it? Okay. Second, what's disappointing is there seems to be a complete lack of acknowledgement by staff of the severity of the parking problem on Overpass Road. You can go there at 10 o'clock on an average sunny day, and if you are lucky, there will be 2 or 3 parking places. On a bad day, there won't be any. The small parking lot on the county facility fills up. Our organization alone, Buns, has 50 to 60 volunteers. We depend on them to take care of anywhere from 40 to 60 rabbits on average. That's more than the number of dogs we usually have at the county shelter. Our oldest volunteer is 77 years old. We hope you will continue the enforcement efforts and any other efforts that are possible to continue to alleviate the problem, because it is not going away. At best, the current compromise leaves the situation no better than it ever was. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We do have 3 remaining speakers. Kendra O'Connor, if you'll please unmute yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi there, I'm Kendra O'Connor, and I've been volunteering at Santa Barbara County Animal Shelter for about 25 years now. I'm glad to see a revision in the amount of parking spots that are proposed to be removed on Overpass Road. It's much better than the 13, but it still remains an issue. And there are not only vehicles left on Overpass Road for months at a time, multiple trailers are left there unhitched as well every day. The staff report states, and I quote, parking enforcement in the area continues its activity, and in the previous months of March, April, May, June, July, and August, of all 43 vehicles tagged, 42 moved and only 1 vehicle was towed, end quote. What the staff report doesn't say is that within days of moving, all of the vehicles are back. There's been no real lasting enforcement. Only in the last 2 weeks, which is kind of suspicious, multiple cars have been gone for longer than a few days at a time. Unfortunately, when I left the shelter last night at 6 o'clock, at least 5 of the usual suspects had returned to their spots, including the motorhome that often parks there. With the recent no parking zones surrounding the MTD property and the proposed zones at Santa Barbara Humane, the cumulative loss of parking will be impactful. Santa Barbara County Animal Services, ASAP Cats, and Bunny's Urgently Needing Shelter cares for thousands of abandoned pets every year. Staff and volunteers travel from all over the county to help manage this tremendous task. With only 8 parking spots on site, we depend on the public street for parking so the public seeking animal services can use the lot. I really, really hope that the city will continue to ramp up enforcement of these illegally parked vehicles. And I hope that next time public parking is proposed to be removed, that a more robust discussion happens at the planning department. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Liz Bush. Please follow the prompts on your screen and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Liz Bush, and I started volunteering at the animal shelter in 2000, a couple years after getting my teaching credential and teaching at Dos Pueblos High School. So I've been in public service for a long time, and I've been walking a lot of miles on 5473 Overpass Road and the surrounding area. The quote, perceived lack of parking that Lee mentioned and others have chimed in on isn't a perception, it's a reality. And I think not acknowledging that demonstrates that people just really haven't been there, walking to see what it's like. We have about 77 dogs in care right now. We go as high as like 88 to 90, and we have 8 parking spaces. We used to have 5, as Angela might recall. As we've, expanded in numbers, we luckily have been expanding our volunteer base and our foster program. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being, leader on that. It's really life-saving, as you know. We have a lot of vehicles coming and going, and we have lots of people that want to be reunited with pets, and the ability for them to safely and appropriately park and get services is really important. Humane does a phenomenal job. The outreach that they do to the community, the training classes, the medical services, out of curiosity, I went there a few times myself to see what it's like, and it's efficient and it's good and it's affordable and families need it. So obviously expanding their operations in that realm is just, it's important, and I support it. But we have to be realistic that all community members need to be able to access all services. Kendra brings up a really good point, talking about the on-vehicle storage. So if council should decide to move forward in approving this project, I think there needs to be a working committee who will come together to develop a parking ordinance that would more robustly, as the saying goes, enforce the problems that we're seeing with on-vehicle or on-site storage. So thank you for your consideration, and I hope all goes well.
Thank you.
Okay, our last speaker, Jessica Wiebe. Please unmute yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Perotti and council members. My name is Jessica Wiebe, and I'm the Executive Director of ASAP Cats. Thank you for the opportunity to provide public comment tonight and for your time and thoughtful review of this project. First, I want to acknowledge the positive steps already taken. The updated plan for parking along Overpass Road now reduces the loss of parking from 13 spaces down to just 4. This adjustment reflects real responsiveness to community concerns, and we support the staff recommendation to pass the resolution to authorize no parking zones on Overpass Road at the Santa Barbara Humane Campus and the removal of no parking zone on Overpass Road at Sumida Gardens Lane. I also want to thank the city for the renewed parking enforcement along Overpass Road. I can personally say that since enforcement resumed, we've seen a clear improvement in available parking near our shelter. This has made a direct difference for our volunteers, staff, and community members, allowing them to reach the shelter more easily and access the services we provide. The Santa Barbara Humane Shelter project itself will bring many gains to the community and its pets. At the same time, the key factor for ensuring ongoing access to all our facilities and services will be the continuance of parking enforcement beyond the completion of this project. It is enforcement that makes a difference in ensuring that all of our services remain accessible to everyone. Lastly, I want to emphasize that ASAP Cats values this partnership and support of the City of Goleta. We are grateful for your time, your attention in this matter, and your commitment to ensuring that our community's needs are met now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes public comment, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Caston.
So for Mr. Fort, and are you, you're also with the Humane, is that right?
We can't.
We
Are
can't.
you
Okay,
asking
they
them
won't
a
be able to hear
question?
you.
Did they-
Yeah, could I ask
Could
them
you
a
come?
question?
Yes,
Come-
go ahead. Can you come up to the podium?
So here's my question, and I don't know if you're really in a position to be able to answer it, but that, as I see it, you know, everyone really, at the end of the day, is on the same side in terms of that there are pets, there are dogs. The dogs that, you know, both Humane and the shelter are trying to help out. And the goal is the same. It's one vision, not ASAP cats. They're evil. But the dogs, let's focus on the dogs. But in other words, you want, I assume the Humane Society also wants to see that those people going to the shelter are able to access it, that the volunteers, the senior volunteers, have a place where they can go, that it's, you know, each is, there's a shared vision that everyone has. And so that's my assumption. And what I've noticed, okay, there's 4 parking spaces right now that's being lost. And what I've noticed is next door to the shelter, there's a parking lot there that's Humane Societies. And there's a big sign there that says the people using the shelter should not come into that parking lot. I understand you guys want to set aside your space, your parking area for your clients. But here's what I'm wondering, if this would be a reasonable kind of alternative action, that you give the the shelter, let's say 2 permits that they would be able to use to park in the parking lot right next to the shelter and dedicated for volunteers or others who perhaps are elderly, have limited mobility, and you know, so they're not taking over your parking lot. So we're splitting the difference. In other words, rather than have 4 spaces that are lost, there would be, for the case of the shelter, only 2 that are effectively lost. And it feels like to me, when I've gone there, I've seen parking spaces available in that parking lot. So it feels like there's a win-win here, that it doesn't have to, the impacts don't have to be bad. And in the end, you know, there are chihuahuas out there that desperately want to see something happen to benefit us. So I don't know if you're probably, as a planner, not really in a position to respond.
Sure, Councilmember Kasdan, it's not something I can commit to, and, you know, SB Humane's management is not here to commit to that. I mean, we'll take it into account. I do know that there are some political past differences between the agencies that might need to get resolved and worked out for that to happen. I don't even know what those issues are. I'm just aware they're out there. But we'll take the suggestion into consideration. I would caution, though, that, we got approved under a pretty robust, I'll use that word again, parking analysis. And we don't want to compromise what staff and the PC analyzed in terms of us providing SB Humane for providing parking for their own users. So that it might be a little tricky to say, hey, we're going to loan out a couple of spaces, but it's something they could ask them to take into consideration.
I don't think the idea of permits, so it's only not, I'm not suggesting opening it up and just saying, come and use it, and then you lose all control or all capacity there. But if there's just, like I said, you got to put in your you give them permits, goes in the dashboard, so 2 people or so are able to use it at a time. That's not too much of an impact. And if to the extent that there's been any kind of bad blood, wouldn't we want to do what we can to move on to try and offer those doves or peace offerings to, bring, to avoid that sort of thing, to move together, because, ultimately both entities really care about the dogs that they're trying to help.
Right. And they all want
Not
the
the
street to
cats.
function correctly as well. All I can say is we'll take it into suggestion and, we'll consider it moving forward.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
You're only,
That's it.
okay. Councilmember Smith.
Yes, some of the public comments related to the parking enforcement question, and I was wondering if staff, I know we've had some changes with our recent budget adoption, and these are citywide changes, not just for Overpass Road, but sort of citywide. But I was wondering if staff could just share some additional information there.
Sure, Councilmember Smith. Yes, council was conducive to funding an additional parking officer for this fiscal year. So we had one existing full-time officer, Crabtree, and then a second one will be coming online shortly. So that effectively will increase the amount of time we have for enforcement. The other parts is, though, we have had changes in parking restrictions throughout the city that have also added to areas to enforce. So it's not necessarily, a net benefit on its own, but more so an offset. The other parts of it, that we found is what you don't see sometimes is our officers will go out and tag vehicles. They're legally parked and they move and then they come back. And that may be annoying, but that doesn't mean they're illegally parked. So just kind of wanting to make sure that that's clear. The other part of it is there have been changes in state law over the last couple of years about having to show your registration stickers, and then, it kind of ties the hands of our officers in terms of being able to cite these vehicles, because then they have to check through their own back channels, and they could have a situation where someone does have a registered vehicle, but they just chose not to put the sticker on, and so you can't tag them. But to the person walking by that vehicle, it's really annoying. They would think that they should be tagged. And then also, too, changes in towing procedures in the vehicle code have also sided more with the owners of vehicles, so making it harder to enforce certain laws. And Sergeant Rivas could speak to those better than I can, but these are the things that we've been related to us in the past. And then again, I think the bigger question is, while this is a very important area of the city for these uses and services, other neighborhoods, other areas might also say the same about where they are. So, we can't be everywhere at all times. but we do try to respond accordingly as we can. So I don't know if that's a sufficient answer for you.
That's helpful. Thank you. Just in terms of where we have been, where we're going, and all the things that you're juggling as staff. So thank you.
Councilmember Reyes-Martin?
Thank you. Maybe just a couple of additional comments. I do agree that the parking enforcement is really important. I have been aware of the challenges of parking in this area for many years, from having rescued or adopted dogs from the county shelter, and having gone there for various things. I've been well aware of the parking challenges there. So that is definitely not new and something that's very known to anyone who goes in that area. So I do think the continued commitment from the city to do parking enforcement has been important, and will continue to be important to try to alleviate some of the issues. I mean, even in one of the photos in the presentation tonight, you can see an example of that trailer that's, not attached to a car, that's taking up a lot of space there on the street. So I know that that's probably just, as Mr. Valdez mentioned, a challenge when they're moved and then come back. But I think that continued enforcement hopefully makes that harder for them, or makes it more of a nuisance for them to continue to do that. And any other kind of outreach we can do in that area to just make it clear that, that's not something we're going to continue to tolerate there, and we will continue to enforce it. I will say that I was a little disappointed, and I would have hoped to hear since April, when this issue, really came up, to hear more from the Humane Society, a willingness or openness to try to be part of a solution with the city. I understand that there, may be challenges with the relationships between the agencies, but with the city, I would have hoped to hear more of a willingness to be creative, just like the city's been creative, to address some of the challenges. Because when I have been there, I have seen a lot of parking spaces open there, and a lot of signage that makes it really clear as a visitor that if I'm not there for the Humane Society, I'm not allowed to park there, and that's their right. But I would have hoped to hear a little bit more of a willingness to work with the city to see how they can be part of a solution to this. So if I know it doesn't seem like we have a representative here tonight, but I hope they're listening, or you can convey that back to them, that I would have hoped to see, some more from the Humane Society. So I think those are the points I wanted to make. The continued enforcement, I fully support and think is going to be important. And just, feedback for staff, as we have more projects like this, or maybe, this might be unique, but to really, maybe make more obvious that there are going to be impacts, whether that's to parking or other kind of infrastructure changes that are going to have permanent changes in the surrounding area. I think maybe just to make that a little bit more obvious early on. We may have come to the same conclusion we are now, but I think that would have helped just make it a little more obvious earlier in the process. I think those are my comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Carrasco?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So my comments are somewhat influenced by the fact that for a decade, I lived across the street. I lived at Samina Gardens from 2010 to 2020. And so I was aware of the parking challenges in the area. I was aware of the impact on organizations like ASAP, because I adopted 2 cats, Mayor Pro Tem Stewart, and their names were Tinkerbell and Scott. Those are not their names now, but those were their names. And they were cats that were fostered through ASAP. And so I got to really understand what the volunteers go through that work in that area. This is a really important area of Goleta that doesn't really get a lot of attention. The Beck Farm is a really important part of Goleta's history. And I have to confess, at the risk of going slightly off topic, I really wish that the Planning Commission approval had been appealed, because it would have given the council the opportunity to talk about the importance of the Beck House. This was an important walnut farm for the city of Goleta. Our identity as a farming sort of rural community that's not a suburb of Santa Barbara comes from places like the Beck Farm. And so to move the Beck House, which was that agricultural symbol, that farmhouse symbol of our historic past, to migrate it to the back of the property where the public doesn't have the ability to view it, was to me a real miss. I hate to be critical of the Planning Commission. Some of my best friends are former planning commissioners. But I really feel that there would have been an opportunity to have additional public comment and additional public process if there had been an appeal. But there wasn't. And decisions were made. And I'm sure at the end of the day, it's going to be a beautiful project in many ways. And I'm sure that a lot of people in the community will be very proud of it. And I'm sure that it'll do a lot of things to serve this community. But I do think that there are real impacts, and the parking impacts are very real. I lived in that neighborhood. I know that neighborhood. I have emails going back to February of 2020 with staff members that are no longer with the city talking about trying to get 90-minute or some other kind of timed parking there. And then this thing called the pandemic happened. You know, we had to do other things. We had to do a hiring freeze. So we didn't have a lot of time to delve on, you know, changing that area to 90-minute parking or 120-minute parking. And so sometimes it takes a while for the city to get to the things that we want to get to, because you have to make choices. As Assistant City Manager Valdez said, you know, everyone feels that their neighborhood has a certain value and a certain need for prioritization. And so sometimes things take a while compared to how long we would like them to take. I do want to defend our staff. I think our staff did a really good job of being responsive to the feedback and doing their best to come up with an elegant solution. I don't know if an elegant solution is what we found, but I think it's a better solution than we had. And so I think that shouldn't get lost in this conversation. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I do think we need to continue to evaluate whether or not the parking that we have in this area, especially with the red curbing that's going to happen, I do think we need to continue to monitor that and decide whether or not time restrictions or some other solution makes sense for that area. But at the end of the day, I feel like, you know, it wouldn't be fair where we are in this process to just turn around and try to force the Humane Society to do a new project or a different project because of the parking spaces. I think the ship has sailed in terms of trying to have a collaborative and perhaps even iterative process where we could have perhaps sharpened our pencils and come to a better solution here. But we're here now. I think everyone did the best they could with the time that they had in the place that we're in. And I think it's just time to move forward. So I'm gonna go ahead and support this.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith?
Thank you. I just wanted to echo and concur with the comments of Councilmember Reyes-Martin in terms of, I do hope that the animal shelter and Santa Barbara Humane can potentially work creatively and collaboratively on addressing some of these concerns. Separately, I think as a city, you know, we also have to ensure that these volunteers, when they are crossing the street or when they are parking, that they're safe. And that has to be our highest priority. We know that volunteers with both organizations are doing heroic work. I believe every single member on this council has a rescue animal of some kind. 3 cheers for cats. But, you know, sometimes we have to, you know, the city has made a commitment to try to get a little creative, and I would urge the organizations and other businesses in the area too. You know, maybe there's other businesses, you know, the school, you know, creative ways that, you know, people can work together. You know, in my other hat, I work in an organization and 2 nonprofits share a parking lot where there's an easement, and, you know, we occasionally have little challenges that arise, and we work collaboratively to work them out. So I would urge everybody to try to get creative moving forward. But ultimately, I think we need to take the steps to ensure safety for those driving and moving around that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, a lot of what I would agree with, and I'm not going to repeat what everybody said, but I will comment on the fact that I think both the shelter and Santa Barbara Humane provide incredible service to the community, and I know how much they care for their cats, dogs, buddies. So I don't want to make this about me, but I will tell you, I am suffering from a knee injury and have to have my knee replaced. And I can tell you firsthand, if I can't find a parking place, not exactly right in front, but if I have to walk several blocks, I can't do it. Not right now. So I can really appreciate people, and it's frustrating when you keep circling and circling, and you can't, and you have to make a decision that you just can't do it. So I can relate to that, but right now it looks like this is what we have. But I will say that Mayor Pro Tem's suggestion, I think that's a fabulous idea. I don't know if they'll do it, but what a great idea. Because I go by there often, and there are a lot of parking spots in the lot for the Humanes. So, and also, we have a bigger problem with stored vehicles on our roads, and that will need to be addressed citywide. I know we have limited enforcement to deal with that, but there's vehicles. There's what are they called? They're moving vehicles, trailers. No, they're trailers that aren't even attached to anything, and now they're accumulating on Cathedral Oak. So I mean, it's not just on Overpass Road; it's happening. So I think this is part of a bigger problem that we have to look at. And I hope we do soon, because our city is growing, and parking is going to be even more of an issue and concern with all the growth and limited parking provided for all the growth. So that's all I have to say. Do we have, I guess we did public speakers, and it's time for a motion. Who would like to make that motion?
I'm happy to make it.
Okay, please do.
Can we, do we have anything that we can have on the screen, or do I need to find it in the staff report?
I don't know. We don't have it on screen? I thought you did originally. No? Okay. That's okay.
I'm having trouble with my Granicus. Right, you want me to make it? Yeah, why don't you go ahead and make it? I'll second it.
Actually, if you'd like, I could just pass the.
I don't care that much.
All right. I move that we adopt resolution number 25, next in line, entitled "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Goleta, California, authorizing no parking zones on Overpass Road at the Santa Barbara Humane Campus, 5399 Overpass Road, and removal of no parking zone on Overpass Road at Sumida Gardens Lane."
I'll second that, unless we can use AI to somehow make it so I was the one that made the motion.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers, do please lock in your votes. Councilmember Reyes Martin.
Aye.
Councilmember Kiriakou.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tempore Kasdan.
Aye.
And Mayor Perotti.
Aye. Ayes have it. Okay, thank you. Thank you for all the work on that.
Similar, but sort of.
That'll take us to our next item, is item C3, temporary on-street parking restrictions for the 2025 Isla Vista Halloween event.
Encourage them to do something like permits. Maybe tell them. Up to you. You're just smarting about the cat comments. Okay.
He's just getting water, so
Oh, are
we
we?
can start.
Oh.
Oh, now we lost another one. Okay,
Well,
go.
Yeah, I was just going to get coffee if we were.
But you have to make the coffee, right?
No. But I have to walk to the kitchen and then back.
Go.
You want to
Go.
Well,
Yes.
All right.
We're almost ready, folks. I think we can read. Did you read this already? Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we're here to discuss the potential of on-street parking restrictions for the 2025 Isla Vista Halloween event. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jason Levy, our Emergency Services Coordinator. And I wanted to mention that we have our law enforcement here in the audience to also answer any questions that may come up on this topic. So without further ado, Mr. Levy.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I'd like to provide a brief overview of tonight's discussion regarding the temporary on-street parking restrictions for Halloween 2025. Historically, the city of Goleta has experienced impacts from unsanctioned events in Isla Vista during the fall Halloween and spring Deltopia weekends. This year, Halloween falls on a Friday. Back in August, the Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness Committee reviewed this issue. Their recommendation was conditional. If UCSB hosts a student-only concert or similar programming, then no parking restrictions would be necessary. However, if UCSB does not host such programming, the committee advised that we enact parking restrictions to mitigate potential disturbances from Isla Vista. Since that meeting, we received confirmation from UCSB that alternative programming will take place, but unfortunately didn't fit into the conditional recommendation from the committee. UCSB's alternative programming is going to be the weekend prior to Halloween, Friday, October 24th, as well as Saturday, October 25th. Their programming aligns with recent trends showing that pre-Halloween weekends tend to draw more activity than the Halloween weekend itself. These trends were due to changes to county ordinances, such as the Outdoor Festival Ordinance and the Social Host Ordinance, which have reduced nuisance gatherings pretty substantially for the Halloween activities in Isla Vista. Additionally, we received information from law enforcement that they anticipate that students in the area will leave during the Halloween weekend on Friday, October 31st to the 1st due to these restrictions, and they'll travel to other areas that don't have such large noise nuisance restrictions. Given this context, we're bringing this item forward to council for discussion and decision, being the two options to alternative A in the staff reports to not implement restrictions based on UCSB's programming and law enforcement expectations for the Halloween weekend, or option B, implement the restrictions to proactively address any potential disturbances.
And Mayor and Council, I also wanted to share that earlier this evening, we were informed that UCSB would have a representative on Zoom this evening if there were any questions related to their function.
Questions from council? Go ahead, Council Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. The report probably mentioned it and I've forgotten, but the reason that UCSB doesn't have the programming, the counter programming on Friday, what was that? Because they have it a week earlier.
Right, so they were going a week earlier, given the recent trends showing the any activity that was occurring for Halloween these recent years has been the week prior because it falls outside of the ordinances that the county adopted to combat the Halloween weekend.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Councilmember Reyes-Martin, excuse me.
There's just a quick question, but the relevant county ordinances you mentioned are still going to be in place over Halloween?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I just have concerns. I will just say it. You know, it seemed to be working when we did have the permit for that neighborhood. I know in years past, students have come in from out of the area and have parked in other areas. You know, it just, okay, this area is permitted and can't go there, but they go other places and then Uber into the, so they still do find a way. But I just remember some of the things I've heard from that community in the past of what they've experienced, and I'd hate for it to have to go back to that. But more importantly, I think I'm concerned that the university is doing something the week before. I still think it's a problem, but you know, I mean, I guess we could give it a try, but I'm just concerned about it. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm struggling with it. Councilmember Reyes-Martin. Oh, okay. Any other comments, suggestions? Okay. Public comment. Oh, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just got a message from Kirsten Desher that she was happy to speak, and she's going to raise her icon.
Oh, okay.
Kirsten, if you'll follow the prompts on your screen and unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. It's Kirsten Deschler, Government Community Relations. First, let me just say that the university has always really appreciated the close partnership with the City of Goleta on these types of events in Isla Vista, and is always cognizantly aware of the impact on the Goleta community. So I just want to go back. It is true that the AS Program Board, which is run by students, has determined that the time to have a concert is Saturday, October 25th. And the reason this is happening is really born out of the last several years, that students leave Isla Vista, leave the community for Halloween. And what they found, and I think that law enforcement will attest, is that the weekend before Halloween is the weekend when we tend to see a rise in parties in Isla Vista. And I should say that Halloween has not been like many of us experienced Halloween when we went to UCSB many, many years ago. Halloween has not been an issue for many years. Now, this is in contrast to Deltopia. Deltopia, there are challenges, and I think working together through Ivy Safe and the county and the city of Goleta and the university and the Isla Vista Community Service District, we're addressing Deltopia, and that'll be another conversation. But I think with Halloween, we are not seeing the amount of people coming to the area. There's nothing happening in Isla Vista, and students they tend, just as Jason mentioned, they want to go somewhere else. Halloween in Isla Vista is not fun. As I would say that it's really, we've been seeing over the last several years that the Isla Vista Recreation and Park District has really played a lead role in offering wonderful family programming during Halloween. And so Halloween has become a time of Dia Los Muertos and immersion programming, really fun things to do in Isla Vista, and it attracts a very, very different crowd. So students are going to have a concert the 25th on campus. It'll only be for UCSB students, and then the weekend of Halloween, the Friday, Saturday, there will be no programming. So I hope that answers some of your questions. Again, I'm here if you have any other thoughts you'd like to share.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilmember Reyes-Martin?
Yeah, I think I appreciate all of that and can understand that. You know, I do agree that Deltopia appears to continue to be more of a challenge. You know, for Halloween, you know, I can get there to say, okay, let's try and see not doing it this year. But you know, one thing I do want to point out is that even though Halloween has been less of an issue in recent years, it hasn't been a non-issue. Even when we have had the parking restrictions, at least the last few years I've been on this council, there have still been issues that we've dealt with as a council and city in the days and weeks after that, where we've had residents from other parts of the community email or send us pictures or tell us about, you know, young people who presumably are here for Ivy, for activities in Isla Vista, parking in the neighborhood and then Ubering over. We've heard about the issues at the airport with people using the parking there. So it has still been an event. I agree that it appears to be a smaller event than what we'd historically seen. So I do still have some nervousness or apprehension about not doing it, especially because it is a weekend. People may have left and you know, in previous years, but it being a weekend makes it more convenient maybe to stay or for more people to come. So I am still nervous about it. It still has been something for us to deal with. And it will be something for us and for, you know, our partners in law enforcement and first responders to deal with no matter what we decide to do tonight. So I didn't just want to point that out.
Councilmember Smith.
I just wanted to clarify and confirm. My understanding is all of the dorms have restrictions in terms of visitors for Halloween weekend. Is that correct?
We would have to defer to UCSB. Kirsten, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I didn't know if I could still talk. Oh, it's so exciting. Yes, that is true. There are restrictions for people who live in dorms and off-campus university housing are not allowed to have people stay over. And we will have parking restrictions in place as per normal. So those will all exist.
Great. That's good to know because some people don't I mean, obviously the towers. I mean, there's a lot of dormitory and apartment you know, complexes and others that are subject to those rules in Isla Vista, not just on campus. So I think that's an important restriction. But I agree, having previously lived in this neighborhood, it's significantly reduced, but not zero. So it is a tricky in between, and who knows what may come a few years from now. There'll be something else new. So it's it's hard to keep up.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I'm also sort of not sure about it, and because I know we've heard a lot of comments, or at least I have, and I think others, as far as that area, First University and Second University, the housing, as far as the tightness of the existing parking and the, how difficult it is without an influx of people coming. And to the extent that there's less ability for people to park in terms of at UCSB, it means Goleta's then the place to park your car and head over to UCSB. So I'd be worried about that sort of thing if we don't know, if people are going to come to the area. I guess I wonder where are they going? Are they just going home over the weekend? Is there another party that's attracting people from UCSB and the area SBCC rather than at IV? Where do they go that's better now?
The information I got from law enforcement was that they were traveling to other college campuses that don't have social host ordinances that we have here in the county.
Other. Yeah, it's a little vague, isn't it? Because our council wants to, we're looking for parties.
Can I make another comment? Can you all still hear me?
Join us.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I should have stayed in person. So I just want to clarify, there is going to be nothing happening at UCSB on Halloween that is any fun. And the only fun thing that's going to happen in Isla Vista is going to be for kids and for parents who have kids, right? And for people who like to dress up and act like kids. But essentially, it's not going to be an inviting place. And as someone who also serves on the Isla Vista Community Services District, I can tell you, we will be doing all our fun we will make sure that we will communicate that there will be no fun. The other thing I wanted to mention on Halloween in Isla Vista. But the other thing I wanted to share is that remember that
That's how I start my classes.
Remember that the festival ordinance is in place during this time, and that means no amplified music during this time. And so there's no amplified music, and there cannot be, I think it's more than 250 people gathering in a business or in a private residence. So there's not a lot to attract people, but I agree, people will come, but then they'll be disappointed and they leave. And I guess the question is, where do they go once they're disappointed with Isla Vista? And then I can see, the city of Goleta, obviously there's a concern that people will be in your neighborhoods. I'll say one more thing. For many years we have put up fencing when the city has done the parking permit program, and we haven't done fencing for several years because we haven't needed it. But let me just offer to you that if in fact you all decide to go forward with a parking permit program, and even if you don't, if you would like us to put fencing on Phelps Road, we'd be happy to do that to complement any efforts that you have that you're going to be doing, and also just to allay any concerns that you have.
I'm seeing a couple of us shaking our heads on fencing.
That would be nice.
You can't see us, but we're shaking our heads.
No, I can see you. I can see you.
Oh, you can?
Yeah,
I thought you could only see the time. Never mind.
No, I can see you. You guys look great.
Thank you. Okay. Councilmember Reyes-Martin, you want more?
Thank you. Always great to hear you, Ms. Deschler. Just for clarification for me, because one other thing too is, the city's worked so hard to have the parking restrictions be kind of an expected thing in the neighborhood. Remind me, how many years has the city been doing this program, and have we done it consistently every year?
I will try to answer that. Don't hold me to the exact ones, but I think it's been going on since somewhere around 2007, 8. We did have a break, I think, for 1 or 2 years during COVID. But basically, yeah, it's been in place, and then we've seen the trajectory of it just become less and less of an event. Not, I think, calling it a non-event may be a little bit of a stretch, but just the sheer amount of resources dedicated by the sheriff's office and UCPD has drastically reduced. When we asked our chief of police, he just really didn't feel like it was anywhere near where it was in the past. And really, Deltopia is the big focus. So,
So I do think there is something to not going back and forth on whether we do it one year or don't do it another. Next year, Halloween will also be on a weekend. So I mean, this is me kind of deliberating out loud that I think there's some value to just continuing to do it rather than, maybe not doing it this year and then going back to it next year, which can be confusing, I think, for residents. Another question I had was, is the marketplace planning to do all of their signage and stuff around parking over Halloween?
they're usually pretty good about it. I would say the Target Shopping Center, not so much. But I would expect Camino Real. I haven't verified with them, but I'm meeting with Mark Ingalls next week, so I can certainly ask that question. The other thing, I not that I'm advocating for not having them, but there is also the impact to people, having a need to get them for their friends or somebody else who's may come into town. So I think typically the practice is 2 permits are issued per household. Hopefully we get a heads up from somebody if they need a 3rd or a 4th one, but that doesn't always happen. So that could put other people out as well. So just another thing to think about. That's been an issue in the past when we did have the full-on press for the whole weekend. So just something to consider as well.
Yeah.
And then-
My last comment. I think that if we choose not to do it this year, I think there needs to be really clear messaging to residents about what they should do if there's an issue in their neighborhood or on their street. I think people may not even realize that we're not doing, if we choose not to, that we're not doing the parking thing until there's a problem. And so making sure that they know, who to call or depending on what the issue is, and that we're kind of prepared to respond to that too.
I was hoping that you and I, since we're on the Public Safety Committee, could agree. Well, I can't agree on this one. I think you said it very well when it sends a message, you're going back and forth. Are we doing it this year? I think and the community, I have heard from that community, they appreciate the permits. It used to be so that they couldn't even take their own children out trick-or-treating. It wasn't fun, Kristen Dressler, for the kids. So we want to make it not fun for the students either. But I struggle with going back and forth. And
Mayor and Councilmember Reyes-Martin, I wanted to share and remind you that we did not have parking restrictions last year for the Halloween event.
And on a what day? Was it
A
Wednesday?
Thursday, I think Wednesday or a Thursday.
Did it rain? Rain always is good.
Rain wasn't our indicating factor, but
Photographic memory?
for sure we didn't have them last year, and I believe it may be 2 years.
It was good, though.
You recall, Mr.
I
Valdez?
think it was 2 years ago, and I think Ms. Plummer is trying to resurrect Halloween as a big event secretly. No, I'm just kidding. But we are trying to just share what has happened in the past. So we did have debriefs with Ivy Safe for several years in a row, and even the now undersheriff was very candid in saying that their big worry is Deltopia and not Halloween. But that was where we saw some of the activities in the past where they spend more of their time and resources would have been some of the motels. One of them is no longer available. The Motel Super 8 had been a problem during Halloween and other times of the year. So we also have Sergeant Rivas here. If you'd like to hear directly from the Sheriff's Office, I'll stop trying to speak for them.
Thank you, Mr. Valdez. Madam Mayor and esteemed council members. Yes, Deltopia is the the big event that we deal with and we'll be dealing with for several years to come. And Isla Vista for Halloween has become a non-event for us. And as we mentioned, the last couple of years, we haven't had the restricted parking. We're recommending option A, that we don't do the restricted parking. And this is based on conversations not only with Lieutenant Vasquez, but also the chief or the lieutenant of the Isla Vista Foot Patrol. And as a matter of fact, the staffing level there will probably be twice the size of what we do on a normal Saturday. So we're not expecting any issues. Somebody mentioned where they're going. I know a lot of the kids are heading downtown, to downtown Santa Barbara is where they're going. And and also based on enforcement over the last few years in those areas, we haven't had much of an enforcement. And then when we did have the restricted parking, the number of citations that were issued were pretty minimal. So our recommendation is that we don't do it. And again, that's based on just the trends over the last several years that we've had with Halloween and where we're headed.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith?
I just had a question to the extent that my understanding from the staff report is we have maybe contemplated some budget in this area. I'm wondering if Deltopia continues to emerge as the ongoing problem, and I know it's been that neighborhood and others, if we could, I mean, if one option might be if we decide not to do Halloween this year, if some of those additional funds could go towards the Deltopia effort and potentially broaden that effort.
So in the budget, we budgeted for both events because the footprint and activities to enact either event is roughly the same. So we double the cost for each fiscal year so we can do both events. If we choose not to do this event, we would just have the surplus left over.
And to follow up, Councilmember Smith, depending on what you would consider expanding or putting more intensity towards restrictions at Deltopia, that could mean very different things. So we would have to have discussions and go back to the Emergency Preparedness Committee and talk with them to see kind of what would be recommended to expand the footprint. And the more we expand the footprint, then from what we heard earlier, we also have people parking outside of the footprint and then currying in. So, but we are willing to look at anything that would help the cause and support law enforcement's efforts as well.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I'm not sure for whom I would direct it, but unlike Deltopia, the Halloween one is a very short period. And I guess what I'm curious about is, I mean, I think in contrast, I think you would agree that, you know, the idea of a permit program would be popular in the neighborhood in general. But I don't know if a 2-day permit program would be popular or not. Is there any sense of how the community would react? Any sense of that they, have expressed concern about Halloween and the crush of cars and demands on parking, or is it, generally is this all more of an inconvenience and it's just one day and so forth? Is there, different than Deltopia in that regard? They love Deltopia restrictions.
Yeah, so the area we're talking about is roughly 4,000 residents. It's 1,250 or so dwelling units. So you might get a difference of opinion throughout that universe of possibilities. But in general, I think what we've heard was for families or anyone who's coming to visit Gersh Park, we've tried to be mindful of that. So soccer games or whatever, we don't want to make it so problematic that it, impacts Gersh and their sports activities or other activities. But in the past, we really just heard, and this is anecdotal, just making sure that they could get enough permits. It wasn't so much that it was a major inconvenience, but if you get 2 and you have 3 roommates, maybe your 3rd roommate would want a permit, and so on and so forth. But not one where folks were annoyed or bothered by having to, hang a permit on their driver's side window.
Okay, so the presumption is, for the most part, the community would be supportive of the permit program, you're saying?
I guess I would say that they haven't shown that they're unsupportive. So yeah, I mean, I guess I don't want to split hairs. I just what we've received is
In prior years, let me ask it this way, in prior years, have we heard any complaints about it, anything like that? Or,
No.
Deltopia, I can tell you the Deltopia permits, I've heard a great deal of appreciation for that process, for that program, because they have such an ongoing problem with parking, and they all of a sudden parking is freed up from students who are otherwise using it. But I don't know if the reaction would be similar for just such a short period.
I don't think there would be, a backlash. I think one thing that Sergeant Rivas and others have discussed is one of the frustrations that comes with Deltopia and having those restrictions is then you hit another neighborhood, right? You have over by Del Norte, over by the high school. And then it becomes an issue of like, well, how far do you, push it out? And at some point, as much as we think about if we have a system, party goers are pretty savvy. They figure out that they can park somewhere, take an Uber, and get around the system. The other part of it is folks don't necessarily telegraph what they're going to do because they can do it very quickly on social media. So something can move quickly. So, part of it is, as government, we're responding the way we can, which is not always the quickest. But from what we've gathered, I think we've tried to share what's been the past experience thus far.
Okay.
Okay, I think we need to make a decision here, so.
Did we get comments?
Mayor.
Oh, we did comment, didn't we?
I don't think we asked for public comment, just Kirsten.
Oh, public comment then. That's-
Yes, those of you on the Zoom webinar who wishes to speak to this item, please use the raised hand icon and I will call on you. I'm seeing none, Mayor.
Because they don't know what's coming.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Somebody want to take a stab at making a motion, and we'll see where it goes? No, I'm not going to make the motion.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, Councilmember Smith, I see.
Oh, yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm looking at all the options. Based on everything I've heard from law enforcement and staff, even with some trepidation, I really trust, and having previously lived in that neighborhood, I trust the judgment of our staff and law enforcement. I would be inclined to follow staff recommendations and to not do it for this year. And potentially, I don't know if there's more that could be done, that the committee could, focus attention on Deltopia issues come the spring. I would move to that effect.
Councilmember Smith, I think that's alternative A listed in the staff report.
Okay. I would move to support alternative A as listed in the staff report.
Sounds good. Yes, so that is that parking restrictions not be implemented on the evening of Halloween. And just a note, that would mean that the council was not approving the resolution, which includes the specific parking restrictions.
Okay.
That's my motion.
Okay. All right, do I have a second?
Your guys are the Public Safety Committee.
If we don't get a second, it just,
Well, I could
nothing happens.
withdraw my motion and try again.
Well, we could take that one, and I will second it and see where it goes, that.
Okay.
I think that's fair. I'll second it. I won't vote for it.
Well, why would you second it if you don't want to vote for it?
Because something, we have to move somewhere.
No, we would just propose the next.
Just make, I'm happy to move alternative B if it looks like that's where we might have.
I can withdraw my motion.
Do we have to, what do we have to do now?
So I would
Confused on
note
this.
we've got a request to withdraw the motion, so I would ask the mayor as the second whether you consent to the
Yes.
withdrawal of
Yes.
Councilmember Smith's
Yes.
motion.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we do, okay.
Yeah, well, I think Councilmember Smith makes really excellent comments, and I don't like being in a position where we've heard from both our staff and our partners at the Sheriff's Department that they don't see a need for it. I can appreciate that. I think if, and I heard UCSB's rationale for the concert not being that weekend. I think if the concert was that weekend, I'd feel a little bit more confident about not needing this, but I don't want to put it on them. That's not the only reason. I just think it's worth doing it this year. And then like we've done in the past, have staff come back after Halloween to share some data and information to help inform future years. It's not a big cost, compared to other things we do. I think the neighborhood is somewhat used to this being typical. I think people will expect, because it's on a weekend, expect that there will be a permit program more than not. So I think it's still worth doing it. So I will move for alternative B, which reads, considering the committee's recommendation and UCSB's decision to host its student-only event the weekend prior to Halloween, the council, I guess, what do I have to read? The resolution. I'm trying to find so would the motion be alternative B and then read the resolution?
Councilmember Reyes-Martin, I think it would be best to maybe read the resolution title into the record as
Okay.
part of alternative B.
So alternative B, and it's for the council to adopt, here it is. Adopt resolution number 25, next in line, entitled, "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Goleta, California, establishing temporary on-street parking restrictions related to the 2025 Isla Vista Halloween event."
I'll second that. Oh, roll call vote.
Council members, please lock in your votes. Councilmember Reyes-Martin,
Aye.
Councilmember Kiriakou,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes, and I would just urge the committee to continue to look at Deltopia moving forward.
Mayor Pro Tempore Kasdan.
Aye.
And Mayor Perotti.
Aye. There we go. Got it. Okay. We need a break, or are we good? No, let's go. Okay. Yes, please read into the record. Next item.
Our next item will be item C4, amendments to sections 12.01.030 and 12.01.035 of chapter 12.01, title 12 of the Goleta Municipal Code regarding safe parking sites and finding the regulations categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act.
And Madam Mayor, I'm going to make some introductory comments as staff is getting set up over there. And I'm going to use a PowerPoint slide if they could show the slide. Thank you. So you'll hear the item before you in more detail in a few minutes, but I did want to share this slide. This is an excerpt from a section that's in attachment 1 of the staff report. So the staff report has two attachments. It has a red line version of the changes to the code and the ordinance, and then it has a clean version, attachment 2. This is straight out of attachment 1. It's on page 5 in the staff report at the bottom of the page, and so you can find it there. And when this went to the committee, the focus was on the safe parking program, and the majority of attachment 1, and staff will go into it, are changes to the safe parking program. At the same time, at the committee, staff thought, well, we're doing an ordinance change, let's do some cleanup too. part of the cleanup was to remove reference, there's other cleanup, but part of the reference was to move references to the Martin versus Boise case, since that case has been overturned. And that case comes up in maybe several places, and so that was part of the cleanup. But we do want to distinguish, since we some other direction came out of the committee meeting, which may come up tonight, but as you recall, we have another item coming before council October 7th that's going to deal more specifically with homelessness enforcement. And so because of that, this section here that I'm excerpting is really from more about enforcement. It's from the anti-camping section of our ordinance, where the majority of the discussion tonight, the entire discussion tonight, is about the safe parking program. So we're actually recommending a slight change because of that, and that way when this comes back to you on October 7th, it'll be clean and you can have a full discussion about enforcement with the entire code that deals with enforcement in front of you. So what you see here is what's in your packet, but what we're recommending tonight is at the very bottom where it's struck out in accordance with the holding in Martin versus City of Boise. We're recommending just to put that back in for now. Yes, the case was overturned, but again, this will come before you October 7th, and that way you can have this section in the totality of the enforcement section and provide any direction at that time. So if you get to the point tonight to move on to a second reading and all the other changes that staff's going to present to you and you talk about all look good, we would just note that on the recommendation, our recommendation would be to make a motion as amended and put this section back into this one paragraph. If that's clear, I'll turn it over to Joanne and Chuck to start the presentation.
Do you have a question? No. Okay.
You answered my question. As you continue.
Okay, Ms. Plummer, are you going to start us off?
Yes, thank you so much, Mayor and Council. Our city manager, Mr. Nisbet, teed up this conversation very well, so I'm not going to bore you with any details. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Chuck Flax, our Homelessness Services Coordinator, who's been working on making changes to the ordinance to expand opportunities for safe parking for a little over a year at least, maybe a little bit even before that, just because of the identification of hurdles and so forth. So this has been a long time coming, and we're excited to present the information this evening.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, I guess it's parking night. So as was mentioned, this has actually been something that I've been working on since before I was a city employee. So it's been about 4 years. And the reason why is that this, the notion of safe parking is an innovation that was actually created in Santa Barbara by New Beginnings. It's long been an issue that people live in their vehicles as an alternative for a whole host of reasons. Domestic violence, they have to come here to work, or it's a rational choice if given the high cost of rent. So people live in their cars. And we've seen, unfortunately, a tremendous increase in the number of people living in vehicles in Goleta. According to the point-in-time count, it was a 95% increase year over year. New Beginnings, who have received a significant grant from the state and through the county, has been doing a really wonderful job of tracking all of the different people who are living in vehicles in Goleta. And if the number fluctuates because the cars move, obviously, between about 100 to 200 per night on the street. So that's a significant issue. The current program currently has 36 spaces. Not all of those spaces are actually in use, which is an interesting observation. And the reason why is the current ordinance is very restrictive. It limits the numbers of hours, it limits the types of vehicles, it prevents people from having lots in a variety of places. So it's been a fairly static situation for a number of years, I've heard the number 13 years. So it seemed time to refresh this and recognize that the problem is bigger, and so let's come up with some kind of a solution. We presented this before the Homelessness Issues Standing Committee on August 12th, and there were no significant changes made to the amendments that you see before you. just to kind of go through the proposed changes, if you weren't able to really track all of the different line items, things being lined out. Specifically, probably the biggest impact is we're going to replace the temporary overnight camping permit with a temporary overnight camping license issued by the Neighborhood Services Department. The current program goes through planning. In fact, no permits have ever been issued. It's been kind of, it hasn't worked. So this new system will allow for a process where staff will actually be overseeing the permits. We talked about removing references to Martin v. Boise. That's actually being pulled out of this proposal. We're going to eliminate fixed operating hours. The hours would instead be determined by the temporary overnight camping license. We're going to remove the limit of 5 vehicles per lot. Capacity would be based on the number of available spaces and also the lot owners, how they would manage that. We would remove the requirement for property owners to maintain a registry of vehicles. This is actually a violation of both privacy and potentially the law when people are fleeing domestic violence. We would require that the property owner or the nonprofit operator with permission of the property owner to be the license applicant. The current language in the ordinance is confusing on that subject. We would remove the requirement to notify all occupants within 200 feet of a site, which we would do under a conditional use permit. That it really isn't necessary in this case, although that's something you all should consider. We would maintain the existing grounds for revocation or denial of a license while requiring 30 days notice to cure any violations of the license. We would revise the appeals process to begin with a hearing before the Director of Neighborhood Services, with further appeals going to the Homelessness Issues Standing Committee. I believe the current ordinance goes to the Planning Commission. It's a more it's a bigger process and involves other departments. So that's it. Those are the proposals in the current the amended proposals to the current ordinance. I don't know whether New Beginnings has joined our call or not. I purposefully didn't put them in the spotlight here because coming up will be a request for proposals for an operator for this program. So we really shouldn't even be calling it safe parking because that's a branded term, but it is in our ordinance currently. And it does describe clearly what's going on, but that's how it is. And New Beginnings may be here, in fact, to comment if there are questions about the current operations. So with that, I'll leave it to your deliberations.
Okay. Council? Oh, are you, do we have any question? Are you asking for questions from council?
Yeah, or, yeah.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
Oh, Mayor Pro Tem.
Why not? Does the aforementioned New Beginnings, to your knowledge, do they support these changes that you have?
That's a great question. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Kasdan. Yes, and in fact, all of these changes were made in collaboration with them as the operator, the current operator of the program, and they brought their concerns on these kinds of issues both to, not just to us, but to all of the local governments throughout the region, including the Elected Leaders Forum, which is part of the Continuum of Care. So there's been an ongoing conversation about how to amend ordinances to allow for more safe parking spaces throughout the county.
And as I see it, the ordinance has, in essence, sort of two elements to it, two broad elements. One is making it more attractive to vehicle owners by removing the 7 a.m. departure time. Is that one of the things, as far as you know, that those who aren't using New Beginnings have cited as one of the reasons they have a problem with going there?
Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem Kasdan, yes. We did and I think they even came and presented on several occasions to the Homeless Issues Standing Committee about the range of concerns that they've encountered in trying to get people to move into safe parking, one of which was the hours. And then limited opportunities and locations, I think, was another issue that was raised. one of the things that was talked about on the committee on several occasions was how do we modify the program to make it more of interest for people. So in the request for proposals that we're talking about, we're talking about opening up the conversation to include a range of different sorts of options. So in Los Angeles, for example, there are 24-hour lots. I don't believe there are any 24-hour lots in Santa Barbara County, but that would be a possibility. There's the possibility of using commercial lots. Currently, the current ordinance is strictly nonprofit or city-owned lots. And I believe the language is adjusted to allow for more flexibility there. So again, I think the purpose here is really to expand the conversation and make it more attractive.
And well, for A, to make it more attractive, and then B, to expand the opportunities, more sites. I mean, for instance, how much has the vehicular homeless, based on whichever metric you want to use, how much would you say it has changed over the course of the past few years?
Can you say more about
how many more cars are
how
there?
many more?
Yeah.
Well, just year over year was a 95% increase. So it's ballooning.
Right. So we have a huge amount of demand, and we need to be able to provide for that. And this has a number of things in there, removing the 5, removing who's eligible. Right now, it's mostly churches, right? And who have extra parking that they're making available, and this would expand it to other areas like commercial lots. And I would add, if you're able to attract them, I mean, I think one of the things we hear about so often are oversized vehicles, and to the extent that some of these commercial lots would open up, like Walmart is famous for making itself available for the vehicular homeless. And so if we were able to expand it in that way, that'd be a big party down Pacific Oaks and Phelps. I guess, well, those are my questions right now. Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes, thank you. To the extent, I'm wondering with these changes, do we anticipate, would the goal or the hope be to expand the program? Is there current funding available for whoever the operator is to expand parking? So if we change this ordinance, are we going to hopefully see that expansion, and is that funding available?
So, Mayor and Councilmember Smith, I don't know. As I know you're well aware, the funding climate is very uncertain. Currently, New Beginnings receives a significant amount of funding to operate safe parking, both from private donations and then some from the county. And I mean, this is clearly an identified and growing issue throughout the county, so it's a priority. There are a lot of other competing priorities in the world of homelessness, so we'll see. And then things are further complicated by changes both at the state and federal level in terms of policy. So I can't answer your question very clearly. The city of Goleta, you all have approved a budget to directly pay for at least part of this program, and that's new. That's something that hasn't been done before. So that's what the request for proposals will address.
Okay, thank you. So potentially in the short term, this could maybe be focused on the sort of increased efficiencies or utilizations of current existing locations, and then it opens up the potential as funding is available for additional expansion within these new parameters.
Mayor and Councilmember Smith, you're raising actually an interesting question, and it was one that was raised by the city attorney. The current lots, we've had an issue with this whole thing from the beginning. Mm-hmm. We've never actually implemented our current ordinance effectively. So the current lots, to some extent, are not quite in conformance with the old ordinance and maybe even some components of the new ordinance. So one question that we had from the city attorney was, should we just grandfather the existing lots, assume that they're going to be okay? We don't have to worry about the permit process with them or not. That's kind of up to you all. The answer directly to your question is no. I think the point of this change is to increase the opportunity for more spaces. So it wouldn't necessarily make the new lots more efficient because the new lots are problematic already. So I think the idea is that we're going to move forward with a process that's clear, that we can implement clearly, and that we can actually monitor in a clear and effective way for new lots.
Okay. And do we anticipate with either these changes and or the RFP, will there be a new round of outreach that goes along?
Mayor and Councilmember Smith, thank you for that question. The current program in homelessness services is an extensive, our biggest budget item is to focus on outreach. And we expanded it in this 2-year period to include people living in vehicles. So, and then there's the program that I mentioned before with, it's the state funding program that's going through New Beginnings. That's primarily, in fact, exclusively an outreach program, very comprehensive, involving case management, rental assistance. That's going to go on for another 18 months, I believe. And just an opportunity to brag about their results. They don't have it exactly in my head, but they've seen a 76% success rate in terms of getting people out of their vehicles and into shelter and permanent housing for the city of Goleta. So we know that outreach, particularly combined with things like case management and rental assistance, can make a huge difference. And so, yes, I'm enthusiastic about our ability to continue outreach.
And then would there be corresponding outreach to potential new safe parking providers as well?
So that's the purpose of the RFP, yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kiriakou.
I'm almost out of questions. I'm only left with kind of a weird one. So one of the good things about how we've tried to address homelessness in the city is that we've had regional partnerships with both the city of Santa Barbara and the county of Santa Barbara, for example, Buena Tierra. So this question is really about how would the ordinance that we're considering, how does that comport with, say, the city of Santa Barbara's ordinance? And the reason why I'm asking is we have a city within our city, the airport property, right, which is in the city of Santa Barbara. And so that to me seems like an area with potential, not just looking at church lots, but looking at that area as an area that has some potential. But depending upon where in that area you are, you might be in the city of Goleta or the city of Santa Barbara. So my question is, how does what we're proposing comport with what the city of Santa Barbara has, which would presumably apply to their property out of the airport, just to make sure going into this process that we're not kind of at loggerheads with each other in terms of how things work. So sorry for the weird question. Maybe it's relevant.
It's not a weird question. Thank you, Council Member. My answer to that is pretty comprehensive in the sense that so under this process where the elected leaders were kind of queried and encouraged to expand their tolerance for safe parking programs, the city of Santa Barbara and the county have been leaders. So the blueprint kind of for this amendment comes from the city of Santa Barbara, where virtually all restrictions were lifted, and they don't even have a permit process. What they did is they just specified, or I should say a license process, they just specified certain areas based on zoning that they wouldn't allow this to happen. Now, whether that includes the airport or not, I don't know. But in other words, they're more lenient than what's being proposed to you. The county is the most lenient of all. There's no restrictions on whether safe parking can be established or not. They've completely left it up to the provider and property owners to make arrangements. So the county property is the most open to safe parking.
I think the airport has its own very distinct zoning, so we might just double check whether it applies or not, because I think that would be a good place to maybe start things. That's not going to hold me up tonight, but just homework.
Any other questions? Can we do public comment, please?
Yes, those of you on the Zoom webinar session, please use the raised hand icon and I will call on you. I do have Sean Kirkpatrick. Please unmute yourself and you'll have 3 minutes. Sean, can you hear me? Go ahead and unmute yourself, Sean, and go ahead and you'll have 3 minutes. Sean, I see your microphone is on, but we can't seem to hear you. Okay, let's come back to Sean in a moment. I do have Cassie Roach. Give me 1 moment, please. Cassie, if you'll unmute yourself, you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. I'm Cassie Roach. I'm the Program Director for Safe Parking. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Chuck and committee members and the city attorney and everyone who has put in so much time and effort towards taking our feedback, getting input of their own, and just all the efforts that have gone into leading up to these recommendations. And we're really grateful for the movement towards increasing spots and increasing new lots so that we're able to provide even more outreach and even more spaces for individuals and families in Goleta that are experiencing vehicular homelessness. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Sean, let's try this one more time. Oh, Sean has just logged off, and I have no more speakers for this item.
I just
Oh,
want
he's back. 1 second, please.
Oh, good, good.
So he restarted his computer. Sean, if you will unmute yourself.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
yay.
Sorry about that. First of all, I want to thank you for the information, and it's been entertaining watching you all for the last few hours. I currently, and I don't know if this is the place and time to do this, but I currently live on Phelps Road between Cannon Green and Pacific Oaks, where I'm sure you're aware that there's a lot of homelessness. I just went for a walk with my dog and I counted 29 cars from on Pacific Oaks going down to Phelps on all the way to Cannon Green, 29 cars. Last night was comparably, roughly about the same. I have no problem with homelessness in that my heart goes out to people. No one wants to live in their cars. But at the same time, when I have 2 children here and sometimes I'm not home, I feel very uncomfortable when there's people sleeping in their cars just across the street from my front door. I know you're probably aware of all this, but I just wanted to voice my concerns and opinions, and I really appreciate any and all efforts to one day curb homelessness. I noticed there's large vehicle signs now there. I call the sheriffs every now and then. For example, right now there's a huge school bus out there. So I would imagine you're all aware of the plethora of homelessness there on a nightly basis. Am I right?
Yes.
Great. And I know it's probably hard to enforce, and I'm sure the sheriffs have their hands held, or, you know, in a tough place at the moment. But any and all assistance that you can do and provide, eventually, I know it's hard. Things take a long time in bureaucracies, but we appreciate your concern and awareness. And again, with homelessness, I know it's not always the case, but sometimes people are homeless because of mental illness, drug addiction, et cetera, et cetera. And I have witnessed a few of episodes out front as far as, you know, people pulling up quickly, exchanging hands and then going. And then lastly, I've seen them use the bathroom as far as the bushes go, numerous occasions. And just to be aware, there's probably, you know, numerous people walking up and down that street every day and every night. So eventually, when we can curb this, that would be amazing. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that concludes public comment for this item.
Mayor Pro Tem, did you have something you wanted to add? Oh, you're
just to deliberate.
Oh, okay.
Just one clarification question, just, you know, for the public commenter. our city manager noted that at a future meeting, we will be talking about enforcement, and that will be an opportunity for us to discuss some of those issues. So please come back for that meeting with your public comments as well.
That's correct. This one is what we're discussing tonight is about the safe parking program itself and changing up the ordinance a bit to make it a little bit, hopefully, enable more people to open up their lots and business parking lots and make it easier, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, to get a license. Because we've been working on this for years and kind of couldn't understand why we don't have more places for safe parking when there's so many available places that would be perfect. And it always kind of came back to the ordinance was a problem. So I appreciate you working on it for over 4 years. I know I've been complaining about it for 4 years, but so yeah, this is just streamlining that process so it's more appealing and more available to those. And then we'll be talking about the enforcement, what the plan is at that point.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have
Yeah.
a comment?
Well, I was just going to, I would third the October 7th meeting and to, encourage you and others to participate in that meeting because I think you'll find it important. And I just, in safe parking, and this goes to the point that the speaker had, it's a really good compromise, and I'm calling it safe parking, notwithstanding it's trademarked. But it's a really good compromise because it's to the benefit of both those people who are living in their vehicles and to the neighborhood. That for the people who are living in their vehicles, they're able to go to a location where they don't have to worry about being hassled. They don't have to worry about being somewhere where somebody's going to knock on their window or something like that, and they can get services. The New Beginnings or whoever the vendor has people that they're able to offer the services directly to them on a regular basis. They're able to offer them the opportunity to have their documents updated, and maybe we could get in the future mobile showers to come to those locations. But when they're in a particular location like that, that's expected, we can provide more. And for the neighborhood, obviously, people should be able to feel safe and not, the New Beginning location or the safe parking location, or whatever it's called, rather, that'll have a bathroom, that'll have sanitation facilities. So where right now people may be using the bushes for bathrooms or throwing garbage because there's no trash can nearby, the safe parking location will have that. So, to me, it is something that helps everyone. And so it's great that we're able to make this work better, make it more effective, and make it more attractive. So I appreciate the work, the 4 years of effort. And yeah, this is a first step. There's multiple stages. We have faced a massive increase in the number of vehicular homeless, and it's a challenge. And this is the first step in dealing with that problem. So thank you.
Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, I will move that we approve amendments to, well, am I looking at the right thing? I thought this was a first reading. Oh, here it is. Sorry. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Introduce and conduct first reading by title only and waive further reading of ordinance number 25 next in line entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Goleta, California, amending sections 12.01.030 and 12.01.035 of Chapter 12.01, Title 12 of the Goleta Municipal Code regarding safe parking sites, and finding the regulations categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act as amended.
Do I
I'll
have a
second.
Okay, great. Roll call vote.
Council members, do lock in your votes, please. Councilmember Reyes Martin,
Aye.
Councilmember Kiriako,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Porkasden,
Aye.
and Mayor Parodi.
Aye. It's unanimous. Ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both so much.
Okay, that takes us to item C5. That is the designation of the City Council delegates for the Cal Cities Annual Conference.
Okay. I'm Shannon.
All right, good evening, Mayor, council members. Oh, thanks, David. So for this item, we're asking the council to decide who should be the delegate for the Cal Cities Annual Conference to vote in the General Assembly. No resolutions have been brought forward by the deadline, but there could be a petition resolution that is brought forward during the conference. So there is a potential to vote, but we do need council to designate a delegate and an alternate. So I will turn it over to you all.
So just to be clear, we're the only ones going, right?
No,
Oh, you're
in the
going?
staff
Yeah,
report,
okay.
yes. Yeah, Councilmember Kiriako is also going. So there's potential.
Not only is he going, he was appointed to the Resolutions Committee in case something does get put
Oh, so
forward.
maybe you should be the voting delegate. That would make sense.
I think my point was I'm busy already.
Yeah, that was.
Oh, I have plenty of time. It's fine. Make me the voting delegate. My time doesn't mean anything.
Well, maybe Jennifer would like to do it. Because I think you did it last year.
Did you?
No,
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 we didn't have to vote last year.
Oh, that's
Oh,
right.
yeah, I did it last year, right.
Yeah, if I may clarify, Councilmember Kasdan was the alternate, I believe, was designated the alternate last year, and Mayor Parodi was designated the delegate. And I think before that, it was Councilmember Richards.
I don't care. If you'd like to do it, you're more than welcome.
That's
don't
fine
have
by
to.
that's fine by me.
Okay.
Okay.
It's kind of fun. You get to
And
sit
then-
in the special little area.
So we need a lead and then an alternate.
So you'd like to be the lead?
So I could do that.
Okay.
Okay.
And
So we
then-
need to vote them in, right?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I do. I think it might. I think it needs to be council action. I'm not 100% sure how we did it last year.
I think just it's a good question. Not always required under these instances. I would say because of the way it's agendized, maybe we take public comment just in case, and then take a formal
Okay.
vote to approve.
Let's do public comment.
Yes, any members of the public on the Zoom webinar wish to speak to this item, please use the raised hand icon and I will call on you. I'm seeing none.
Okay.
There's a shocker.
Councilmember Reyes Martin.
I move that we designate Councilmember Smith as the voting delegate and Mayor Pro Tem Kasdan as the alternate delegate to represent the city of Goleta at the Cal Cities 2025 General Assembly.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Council members, lock in your votes, please. Councilmember Reyes Martin,
Aye.
Councilmember Kiriako,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Porkasden,
Aye.
and Mayor Parodi.
Aye. Okay, unanimous. Yay.
Yay.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any council comments of standing committees? Oh, there's a Finance and Audit Standing Committee.
Right. I mean, we dealt with it today in today's item, consent calendar item.
I wanted to, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to comment that that there was an event hosted by the Greater Hispanic Chamber in honor of Mexican Independence Day. That was September 11th, I believe. Yeah, and it was just a really beautiful gathering, and the Mexican consulate was there, and today's actually the Mexican Independence Day, so just wanted to acknowledge that, and that was a really nice gathering. So.
And I just wanted to note that I will be attending the Central Coast Community Energy Annual Meeting in San Luis Obispo for the next 2 days. So I will bring back any updates at our next council meeting.
Great.
Bring back an otter.
Nice.
You're not the alternate. You're yeah, great. Good. Because
Oh,
I know we changed with Carpinteria
an otter.
back and forth. Yeah. Okay. And
One
the
mo-
other-
I forgot one last just announcement. I wanted to let folks know that Legal Aid's Chowderfest event is going to be Sunday, September 28th. It's going to be at the Santa Barbara Carriage Museum this year, but just wanted to let folks know.
Off the hook.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Rosen, do you have any comments?
I do. I just wanted to say it'll be the second year in a row I have to miss the Lemon Festival. So, but third time's the charm, and I'm excited for next year, and I hope everyone that attends enjoys it. Looking forward to the pie.
Okay, that's coming up, isn't it? The Lemon Festival, let's not forget. Okay, meeting adjourned.
Yeah.